I unmuted you, but not me. This is
Hi,
only the second
everybody.
time I've done this since January. So I'm out of practice of all the technical things. Ocean, great to see you. Corax, great to see you. My Texas homie, thank you so much for that sub. It's really sweet. I appreciate it. 3DCB, good to see you. I love having you guys here. I love that people still show up, even though I was not doing the chat stream for a long time. And I'm super excited because my guest today is none other than Handsome Harry Ransom
Hi.
from
Hello.
formerly of Baltimore, right? And
DC.
was
DC,
you live?
Baltimore.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
more. I was more of a DC person, and I lived in DC for a year, and then
Okay,
most of
okay.
the rest of the time I was in DC suburbs.
Okay, nice. Which of that there are many. Like when I went and visited my friend in DC, they lived in Maryland. We drove through Virginia to get to DC. Like it's
Mhm.
it's wild how all that works. Secret Structures, big up. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Secret Structures is going to be my guest next month on the 18th. And apparently, what this show is turning into is I want producers to tell me what to do. And so I'm going to con them into giving me advice by getting them to come on my stream. But what an amazing little community of producers we are building around here. It's really cool to be a part of. It's cool to see everybody having music come out. It's good to see people collaborating that like have just, met and connected with one another. It's amazing. But Harry is my guest. He is also known as Ransom. And like I said, from the DC area, been doing this a long time. And
Yeah.
he now lives in Boston. He
Yep.
is a DJ, he's a producer. Did you throw events back in the day?
Yeah. Yeah. I was involved in a few different events.
So you've
All
been
the way,
in,
all the way from like flyering up to like event production. You know, talent acquisition, procurement, all
you've done it
those
all.
project management words. But yeah, I
Yes,
was involved
yes.
in a lot of different things.
Hey, Brady,
Consultant
welcome
one
in.
time. Yeah, so far, like all four people you've shouted out are all people I know because,
Yeah.
well, I know Ocean because he's from the DC area, but it
Yep.
wasn't until last year that it was like his name's Ocean, it's not Edward. So but yeah, Brady, Secret Structures, and Korax, I've all like internet met in the last
Yeah.
like 2 years. Um, Brady and I know Brady and I have like quite a few mutual friends, like real life
Yeah.
friends, and
Yeah. Corax is from Texas, and of course, John Good Shepherd is from Texas also.
mhm.
I know John and I, at the very least, Corax is a little younger than us, so maybe not so much him, but I know John and I were at the same events. We probably walked past each other. We went to the same college. We
Mm.
were in, we were involved in, this in the scene at the same time. He had heard of me, and I'm like, okay, first of all, that's ridiculous. Like, I'm not the kind of person that you hear of, but this is really cool to meet you. Now, that's one thing I'll say for the pandemic. Stressful, hard, really difficult, but really, I think, connected people in ways that they might not ever in any other circumstance have connected.
Your name was familiar when you popped. Like I started watching Twitch more in the last like 2.5 years or so, and your name was familiar. And I think it's because of the Purr and Lion, like the zine they used to do. And I feel like
Yeah.
your crew
Yeah.
got shouted out in that. I contributed reviews like for a couple issues, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I knew Sean Lord Vishnu
Hmm.
because he started getting booked in the DC area and like
Hmm.
I don't know, hit it
He
off with
was
like the
like the
people.
first DJ. He was like the first DJ that really like took me under their wing. And
Mhm.
I remember him like, okay, you're going to start DJing. And he brought me like a stack of like six knowledge magazines. He's like, you need to start reading up. You know, it was crazy. Yeah, that's wild. Those
He
guys
played.
are, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say he played my radio show in college a couple times. Like he got
Nice.
he got he got booked to play. I'm pretty sure he played Buzz a few times, which was like the big weekly rave night. But they not always they often had drum and bass talent on the lineups,
Hmm.
and they bring in regional, national, and international guests. and
Nice.
he came a few times. He would come out early enough to come on our radio show on Friday afternoons at University of Maryland. Um, and then I think I met Billy BMC through like maybe the breaks list, like one of those email lists.
Hmm.
And I eventually met him in person in San Francisco when San Francisco was like the U.S. hotspot for drum and bass.
Yes.
So I went out there numerous times to just like hang out, but I often ended up playing like 2 or 3 nights in a week that I was
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And I remember he was out there. Like there was one week I was out there to play at a massive at this warehouse venue called Home Base in Oakland,
Uh-huh.
and he was there hanging out. Like Diesel Boy was on the lineup, Method One, and Chaos. I
Hey,
think
that's a who's who, man.
yeah,
Like, it's
Tekich.
incredible.
I think Tekich was on the lineup. Maybe I'd have to. I don't know if I can find a flyer, but like I remember
Mark
Billy
came
being there, like
to
hanging out.
he spent a lot of time in the US. It seems like I feel like I saw him on flyers all the time.
Yeah.
Um yeah, those guys, so Ryan, DVS1, a later comer officially to the Purr and Lion, Brad Slack, DJ Classic, um, couple other guys, they're still throwing events. They're bringing Fabio on Saturday for their 12-year anniversary of this particular event that they're throwing, which
Hmm.
I didn't realize I had been at the first one. But they are the guys that threw the first jungle party I ever went to in 1995. And they are still pushing the sound. I saw DJ Rap at this tiny
Hmm.
hole in the wall, like underground, literally underground club.
Hmm.
I forget what MC was with her, but like
Could have been
those
Warren
guys,
G.
it could have been. It
Because I
could. You're
feel like
right. Oh my god, I haven't thought about him in forever.
yeah. Well, you brought up
Wow.
England when we were texting and you
Yeah.
brought up the England record. Like DJ SS played the DC and Baltimore area a lot, and he usually had Warren G with him. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
looking
Yeah.
like the chat. Like I'm like down.
Right.
Like
I know. I know. Uh. Uh. I got distracted because one of my highlighted messages came up and it was my timer. I made that message. So, but yeah, it's crazy to me how small ultimately the US scene was whatever. Like the connections between people are like incredible. Like like I opened for Reed Speed like once and she's like, "Yeah, I remember you." She was like, I loved that night because she was like 2 hours late because her flight was fucked up.
hmm
And so I got to play for like 3 hours and I was like, everybody makes fun of me for bringing a lot of records. This is why I bring a lot of records. Back when you had to,
yep.
schlep them from place to place.
I'm like
But
let me. Yeah, I'm notorious. I would overpack, but I also played a lot of back-to-back sets with my friend
yeah.
Ben. I got
Hmm.
one half of it right here. The record
Oh, look
crate.
at that.
Yeah.
See, I never had a fancy crate.
Yeah, I bought
Never.
that my first time in San Francisco because I bought so
Oh,
many
nice.
records.
Yeah, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I never really, I traveled within Texas into Louisiana a couple of times, but, oh, and Oklahoma, I guess too. But, I didn't get much bigger than that. But okay, so like for me, like, first of all, you have to know that I haven't written notes for a show in a long time, but after we talked yesterday, I actually wrote some things down because I don't want to forget to talk
Mm.
about them. But I want to start for me and for anybody here that doesn't know your story with telling me about how you found jungle and drum and bass. How, when, all of that. So,
Bjork
Bjork?
starts. It starts with Bjork and MTV.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Tell
uh,
me.
I was an MTV kid. I watched a lot of MTV growing up. Uh, it was usually Yo MTV Raps, and on Sundays I wouldn't stay up for it, but I'd set up the VCR to record 120 minutes.
120 minutes. Yep.
So 120 minutes exposed me to like a lot of Britpop and like indie and alternative stuff, and I really was into De La Soul and A Tribe Called Quest, like a lot of hip hop like that era when they got big, like, you got the jazz, like Low End Theory, stuff like that. I was also buying CDs a lot at that point, like in high
Hmm.
school. Like I was probably going to a CD shop, record shop, weekly,
Hmm.
and buying like two or three things. Buying a lot of music magazines. I'd read Spin and Rolling Stone a lot. And I
Yep.
remember in '95, it was my senior year of high school, uh, reading an article about Bjork, and they brought up like her avant-garde boyfriend, you know, firebrand, like burgeoning new style of music from England. You should check out his album Timeless by Goldie. And I was like, I was into car audio at that time, and I was like,
Okay.
drum and bass, and I like bass. And so I bought his album, and I bought a compilation called Counterforce that at the time I didn't realize what was on it. Years
Hmm.
later I look at it, it's there's Pesce and Goldie and
Hmm.
like DJ Crystal, Warp Drive, like just all this seminal stuff that.
Yeah.
So I bought this, and I didn't know about raves. Well, I knew about, that's the thing, is I actually did know about raves when I was younger,
Hmm.
but I was scared to go. I was pretty timid about stuff like that, but like I don't know. I bought Timeless that summer. Then I moved into a dorm for college, and there were a lot of kids from like New York and New Jersey, and they were already going to clubs and raves, and and I was friends with them, and they're like, "Well, you like this music, you should come because this is what they play."
Hmm.
Like the wide range of house, like house and trance and whatnot. Like you'd really like jungle and drum and bass. I was like, okay, cool. And so it took a girl calling me chicken shit, and that got me to go to my first rave, which was
God
right
bless
off
that
her.
girl. Where is
I know
she?
she's in Colorado. She's a doctor. Like she's involved with like the College of Mines or whatever. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So and through her, it's my friend Teresa. Through her, she had a friend from high school, this guy Ezra Gold, who went to college in upstate New York, but lived in the Maryland, like the Baltimore suburbs, and brought his DJ equipment to my dorm room a couple times for like weekends when he came to visit Teresa, and would let me just try. He was not precious about it at all. He was not some like DJ jerk. He was just like records and mix them and like so.
It's not hard.
That was
Anyone can do
yeah.
it.
Well, no, it was hard. It took me like 2 years to
It
learn how to
is
beat
hard. No,
that.
no, I'm saying like that's what they say. They
Yeah,
say it's not hard. It's hard as fuck.
yeah,
On records,
um,
on a controller, it's a lot easier. But
yeah. I will have the sad part though is I heard from Teresa about a year ago. Ezra passed. He passed away on New Year's Day.
oh,
His wife found him. He had a heart attack after a bike ride.
wow,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, yeah. So that was a bummer. Um,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
No,
You-
I mean, like we're at that age, right? Like I was
Yeah,
thinking about this as I was getting ready today about how, you have two kids and I was thinking about John Good Shepherd and how he has like teenagers and I always think god, they're so young to have like a teenager or to have two kids. I can't imagine it and I'm like, damn it, we're not that young. I just don't have them. Like
hmm
that's we've all
I mean,
really grown up.
I had kids later in life. I definitely have peers that are probably grandparents now, but
I could
whatever.
legit be a grand like I could be have been an adult and had a child and legit have a grandchild right now.
It happens. It happens like on production stuff. It's like you know, blah blah blah. Like the romantic story, like the 17-year-old. It's like tearing up whatever. Like big thing. Like they're headlining Rampage or something
Right.
wild like that. It's like that could be my kid. Like
Yeah. Wow.
it's
That's
yeah.
insane. That's
I mean, there
insane.
is
I know, like, you think about how young High Contrast was, like, when he, when he got in, when he really, like, became, like, known on the scene and stuff. And um, it's, you know, but I
well,
was
there's
like 20, I was 20 when I found drum and bass. So,
yeah. I was
yeah.
18. But like you have Kenny Ken, his
Hmm.
stepson's Chrissy Chris. Like Chrissy Chris was playing out at like age 12, I think.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
I think Logan D. I think I don't know if Mickey Finn's kid. There's Mickey Finn or someone from like that kind of crew. Like they have a kid that has done pretty well, and then recently I feel like Ray Keith has talked about one of his daughters is starting to play out shows. Um,
Nice.
Randall's got a son who's a DJ and like an A&R for like a house label. Um,
Wow.
I can't remember the guy's name. I saw his Instagram last year, and he had like, people do these videos where it's like I'm mixing this record and this record, and I'm like,
Right.
this like housey tune is sick. Like, what is it? I couldn't get in. Like, no one would ID it.
Right.
And then 9 months later, I was catching up on stuff like I don't keep up with music as much as I used to because I wasn't
Right.
DJing as much.
Right.
I really like this duo called Dusky,
Hmm.
and I'm catching up on their EPs and stuff. And it was a Dusky track, and then that
Wow.
that was like my most played track on Spotify last year because I probably listened to it about 50 times.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I okay, before we go into that, um it's crazy to me to think about like how we're literally an ocean away from jungle. And
Hmm.
back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, like jungle wasn't even big there. Like it was literally, in order for us to share this with people, we are going to pirate radio to do that, and in addition to all our little things. But it's crazy to me to think about how these tiny things ended up getting the sound here, like these little tiny seeds. Like for example, Houston, a DJ named Chris Treadway. He was part of he founded a crew with a couple other guys, Andre Morant, um, Robert Martinez. I forget what his DJ name was, but Chris had gone to the UK for like a summer or something like that, found raves and music, and brought Jungle Records back. And that was like the thing that kicked it all off. And, here we are almost 30 years later, the guys that threw that first. I think that was honestly the first like full jungle event in Texas in 1995. They're still putting on shows because they're still crazy enough to risk money. Um,
Yeah,
they just now have more money to risk because they're grown-ups and
I
have real
discovered
jobs.
production.
Yeah, because you're gonna get rich off of drum and bass production.
Yeah,
Man, if you break even, you would be lucky, I think, at this point. But it's just crazy to me that um, how that happens, and like how that's the one thing. Like the scene is so small here, but we were so spread out, right? Like so geographically spread out. Unlike,
hmm
like I knew there was a scene in Toronto. I had been to DC, Baltimore, so I knew there was a scene there. I knew about San Francisco, obviously New York and LA, but like I didn't know who those people were. I didn't have connections with those people. And they're always like, well, why didn't you have connections? People will ask. And I'm like, man, I was busy trying to push the sound in my own in my own city. I didn't have, like time or whatever to like really connect with other people. And the internet was not like it is today,
yeah.
like at all. So, I guess we might as well just go into, okay, so you went to that first rave. What was that like?
It was like a dive bar in our college
Okay.
town. Supposedly Dara was on the lineup, but we left before he played, so we didn't. I didn't hear any jungle that night. Um, like a week or two later, I was on winter break, and I got a bunch of my friends from high school to go to Buzz. So that was the first
Nice.
time we had gone to Buzz. I don't remember who played. I just remember like some of the images of like what I saw, like how people were dressed, how friendly people were.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized a couple people from my campus, but I didn't know them yet. I
Uh-huh.
one of them I ended up meeting like soon after and actually became friends and like DJ partners with for several years.
Yep.
That would be Ben Co. he figures into a lot of the early stuff. Um, then a group of us from college went to Philadelphia for a rave in Philly for New Year's called Let's Start Dancing. But
Yeah.
we were waiting for someone to drive up, someone that was in the Navy that was like stationed in Virginia Beach, and they were driving up to Philadelphia and they got lost. So they didn't make it to our friend's house until like 4 in the morning. So we didn't even go to the party until like it was like 5. So we probably got like an hour there, and then I just remember the police showing up, power got pulled, just the sound of like turntables getting like suddenly turned
Aw.
off. Yep. And then like, just the march of people like in dirty giant pants, leaving
Yep.
this like convention
Yep.
center.
Yep. And those were
Um
the ones that weren't smart enough to like run away, like who didn't get the heads up.
and then it was probably a week or two later I went to a party a Friday night in Baltimore at what was called the Rise Warehouse. There used to be a
Mhm.
Friday weekly called Rise, but I never made it to Rise. The people took over the night and gave it like a different name, and it lasted maybe 2 months. But I saw Dara that night, and I remember Super Sharpshooter, 6 Million
Yes.
Ways to Die, just like,
Yes.
yeah, just like all that like frontline Ganja record stuff, and I was hooked. Like,
Yeah.
I think the first mixtape I bought was probably in March. It was Method. I bought a Method One mixtape and a Time Stretch mixtape because they
Yes,
played
we
it.
used to buy actual cassette tapes. We
Yeah.
paid for them.
Uh, they played at a net rave. Like it was one of
Yeah.
the. It was like in college. Like we had email access
Mhm.
and joined a bunch of these like listservs, and one was the or not New England, Northeastern raves, any
I
raves,
was on that. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they
Any raves.
they they threw a party in Lonnie Fisher's warehouse in Baltimore. It's like a little, like, I guess they can fit like 300 people in it, but it was all
Lonnie
Ultra
is
World.
Ultra World, right? Yep. Okay, we'll
His
talk about that in a minute.
his DJ name was Entity. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I pronounce stuff wrong. Um, but yeah, so that I remember buying Method One tape. Just it was super. It was like all this like early Photech metalhead stuff. It was just excellent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'm trying to remember who the first international DJ I saw. It may have been Chemistry and Storm because they played in DC April of '96 at this. They played at the DC
At the
Armory, but it was a
DC
one.
Armory,
Yeah, it was a
I was
DC Armory
there.
party. It was Easter
I was
weekend,
there. It
and
was
they
my
the
it was my actual birthday.
oh
Like my
nice.
21st birthday. Yep.
And the DJ setup was in the center of the room, and then there were
Yes.
four corners. So like
Yes.
it would be
Yes.
DJ, then a band, then DJ, then a band, DJ band. I found about a 10 minute. I probably shared. I think I shared it with you like several months ago. But there was like someone got some of the video
Right.
and the Chemistry and Storm there. So yeah, that was huge. Like
That was
just
such an event. Like I met what was Dan Freebase, I think
okay from
was
like
one of the he was one of the
Wisconsin or
guys
something.
on the DC Raves mailing list or the Any Raves
Mm.
mailing list. Went and hung out with him. A friend of ours from Texas had moved to Maryland, and
Okay.
so we went to visit him. And yeah, got to go. I was like, wait a minute, all day, literally all day rave on my birthday. Fuck yeah.
Hmm.
And like that the night before, we got there kind of late. Sorry about the camera, guys. I don't know why it's focusing problematically, but uh we got there the Friday before, and we were there pretty late, and we decided to go to, was it Nation or Nations? I can never remember.
No
Um
S. It was, and back
Nation.
not
Yeah.
'96. It was actually Capitol Ballroom still.
Yeah, so we ended up going there, and we got there after midnight, and I remember realizing they had two lines. They had 21 and up and under, and I was like, "Oh my god, I get to go into the 21 and up line." And yeah, then the next day there was the rave. Rabbit in the Moon played, which, oh my god, I feel sorry for
No.
anybody that did not get to see a Rabbit in the Moon show live. at a rave because that was an experience. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a full on experience. So yeah, that was my first connection to DC, and I think we went back the next year for another Ultra World event. Um, I
They
just
did a
remember being at
few.
the armory. Yeah, I remember being at the armory and thinking, how is this happening? Like, how is this not shut down? Like, this is weird. And like when we went the next time, there was a whole jungle room, and like Diesel Boy played, and
Yeah.
Dr. Escachet, and I forget who the other folks are who
That was a
were, but
that was a tent
yes,
inside the
yes,
armory. Yeah. I took
crazy.
my younger sister to that one. She was she 16 yet? She may have been 15, but like my mom, I was like, hey, that was Thanksgiving weekend, and I remember telling like I was home. I wasn't. You couldn't stay in the dorm for that week or whatever. But I remember telling my mom, hey, I'm going to this with my friends. Like I can take my sister Jean. It'll be cool. It'll be safe. It ends at midnight. And I was like, okay. So
Yeah,
yeah, my sister didn't take the raving like I did.
yeah,
She was more of I don't want to say jam bandy, but like
hmm
she was into different stuff.
yeah.
So
Which I have to say, like that was so risky of Lonnie to think, okay, here's this venue, but it's a government venue and we can't go past X hour. So I'm going to
mhm.
do the craziest thing I could possibly do and ask these ravers who, let's be honest, love drugs, um, to come to an event that's all day. I'm going to entice them with the fact that it's going to be 12 hours, but I'm going to ask them to come to this all day event that ends at midnight when most of them wouldn't even get to the event by
Mhm.
midnight. That was some risky business. And he did it. And I mean, I just think about the talent that he brought. And man, you were rolling the dice every time with that back then. Like even on the coast, because they might not clear customs or, visa issues and,
Yeah. You didn't
all of that.
I feel like you didn't hear about that so much. I didn't hear about that so much then. It wasn't until you got involved in some way that you start hearing
Hmm.
about like
Yeah.
the incidents and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, as when I started DJing, I would hear more about it, obviously, because it impacted like lineups and, things like that. But I didn't fully appreciate the risk that people were taking until I was probably closer to 30. Like, really thinking about how much cash they must have put out and the fact that there was no guarantee. That shit, you could lose your venue before the event even happened, like before
Well,
it even started.
in the
And then the
chat,
cops coming. Ultra is
uh,
there in the chat, yes.
yeah, I don't know Ultra, but Ultra's got a good sense of history. That was April of '96. The party, it was a Too Tough party. It was AK 1200, Carl K, Slant Stress, who were the Too Tough DJs, and
Yep.
LTJ Bookham with Conrad. And it was booked at a venue in Tacoma Park, Tacoma Park is partly in Maryland, partly in DC. I was born in Tacoma Park in the Maryland side. The venue was in DC. I don't know if it was like a rec center or an art center or something, but it was like a
Mm-hmm.
1,000 person space. And AK 1200 played. I remember getting in line. My friends and I met a bunch of kids from Pittsburgh, and it was like the whole like, oh, who's cool from Pittsburgh? And it's like, do you like Diesel Boy? Like, we like Diesel Boy, but DJ Sign is like our guy. So that's the first time I heard about Andy Sign.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy and Damien are like friends. Um,
Yeah.
but I think we got in the venue, and within 15 minutes, it got shut down by the police. And then Lonnie got on the system, and it was like, "Party's moving to my warehouse," and like just the information like shared between people. And there's this
Yes.
caravan up 95, up to like Lonnie's warehouse was just outside of Baltimore, so it was probably about a 35-40 minute drive from where we were. But yeah, just like at that they weren't taking tickets. Like you just went in, but
Right.
they called it the Azar. No, they called it the Raza Warehouse, and it was on Azar Court. Lonnie lived there. I think he had roommates, and that's where the net rave thing I had gone to like a month or two before. The other thing is, I took my who was supposed to be my roommate the next year because I was going to be in the same dorm and you could request like roommates. So I got this guy to go because we were like friends, but he was not a raver. This is the first about
Right.
like my friends and I dressed him up in like jinkos, and we're very much like polo ravers with like the polo baseball hat and like
Yeah.
the polo
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we got up there. Carl K was playing. Bookham played. I bet like I don't know if there were any photographers there, but there's good potential that I was up on stage at some point. And like I didn't
Hmm.
know anyone throwing the event. It's just like
Right.
I was so hard pressed that like I wanted to be on the stage, like watching what was going on. And
Yeah.
then after Bookham, it was a surprise guest.
Oh, who was it?
And it was DJ. I'm looking at the chat. It was DJ Trace,
Wow.
and
Wow.
this was like his debut tech step set. Like this is when he was going to play a set of like the new direction he was going in. And yeah, that was just like I don't know if that was the first time I saw Trace. But Trace was like highly revered by the group of friends I had. Like just you have a Trace tape? I got a Trace tape. You want a copy of the Trace tape? Like Secret Structures isn't. He hasn't said anything in a little bit. Like one of our early conversations was about Trace's mixtape Black Widow. That
Uh-huh.
Secret Structures like did like a track for track reproduction of it. I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He's in the chat. You got a big bruh. Black Widow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
My my favorite Trace tape though. I don't know if it ever had a title, and after I lost it, it was never found again. And even asking, like, I remember emailing Trace at some point or messaging, like, well, I have friends in the DC area that know Trace and like hang out with Trace. I still haven't like met him.
Hmm.
Part of me is like intimidated to. It's dumb, but like I remember messaging him and be like, "Do you remember this mixtape?" And it had this track and this track. He had Josh Wink's "Are You There?" like a loop of that at some point in the mix, and it's just like
Uh-huh.
this really interesting transition into like whatever else happened in the mix. But
Oh, wow.
what was
That's so cool.
it's a DJ Crust remix that he had on that I fell in love with, and like one of my good friends bought me a copy like a few years later, and I still have that record. It's Turntable Terra Nova Precipice DJ Crust remix. It's just amazing, amazing music.
Yeah. Um, wow. I I love that. Um, it's I don't know, man, like there is it's funny because like, hey, Darth Liquid, good to see you. One of the things I've realized doing this, and with you're my 35th interview tonight, by the way. Is talking to all of these people. We're spread out all over the place, but our
Hmm.
stories are so similar. Our experience is so similar, and that like foxhole mentality. I think especially if you were into jungle back then, because
Hmm.
that was like the underground of the underground.
Did, did you
Um,
ever get Did you ever get Dub Shack catalogs from Chicago for mixtapes?
No, I people did, but I never. I didn't really get into buying mixtapes.
Oh, I had like three milk crates full, and
Oh, wow.
I gave I gave them to a friend about 10 years ago because they were like, "Oh, I'll digitize them." And I feel if he listens to this interview, he's gonna feel bad. Like I'm not trying to make him feel bad. He digitized like two or three of them, and
Hmm.
then nothing happened, and I never got the tapes back. And he moved away from DC. Something he left everything. I'd say
Yeah.
about 2 years ago or so. Someone posted a picture on Facebook, which I barely check, but someone posted this picture like I got these random tapes when I moved into this house, and it's got names of like DJs that I know, but it looks like someone cut up flyers and put them in the tape inserts. I was like, that's me. That's like my tape. Like that's my handwriting. It was a Scott Henry tape.
Oh my
Um,
God, Scott Henry. Yeah.
yeah. So I used to cut up like you get so many flyers at a party, And it's like, why not make your cassette tapes look a little more interesting? So yeah, I would cut
Right?
up flyers and put them in the J card slot. But yeah, there was a lot of mixtapes in those crates. I used to buy a lot of tape packs from England.
Yep.
I used
Oh
to
man,
trade tapes with people like in Canada. Um,
I remember being like at raves and like people would have like tables with all the packs, like here's this pack from like some rave on New Year's Eve in the UK, and you would hear shit on those, like those professionally printed and duplicated tapes. You would hear shit on them that either never saw the light of day or they would get published like 2 years later. Um,
mhm.
it
Yeah,
was
hold up.
crazy.
I would call up like when I got into buying record. Well, buying record. I'm just jump, jump, jump,
No,
jump,
that's
jump.
what we do here.
Um,
That's what we do here.
it was '96 is when I got into. It was like March of '96 is when I started buying records.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Tower Records in Rockville because Andy from Too Tough. He was like the main. He was like the manager, I guess. I don't know how Andy's got interviews. He was on Ocean's show like a
He
year or
was.
so ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And Too Tough is like the origin of drum and bass in DC. Like Slant was like their main DJ. Andy was the main promoter, and the group started to grow, and they expanded. They had like Stress came on. They had MC's Mecca and Nest, and then other DJs came on. I think Overload from Boston when he lived in DC for a little bit, he was a part of it. But Andy worked at Tower Records in Rockville, and I learned in his interview that Tower had a system for getting import records. Like you could request a record from anywhere in the Tower system worldwide, and then it would then get shipped. So they had these import jungle and drum and bass records for like $5 and $6, and
Whoa.
we were going like weekly and just getting so much stuff. I mean, the first time I bought records, I got Lemon D, This Is Los Angeles, and Urban Style Music on
Oh,
Metalheads.
wow. I can
Um,
hear that in my head like the second you said it.
I
Um,
still have that record, like that copy that I bought.
mhm.
I also got 6 Million Ways to Die, which I sold at some point in the last 15 years. Sorry, Zinc. I got Formation Records Highly Recommended compilation. And that was the record that all my friends in the dorms like would be like, can I borrow like the trance DJs and the breaks DJs and the house DJs? They would ask to borrow records like when they would spin like in the in
Yeah.
the dorm rooms. Like we want to
Yeah.
borrow that because there's like 18 tracks on 3 records, and that had stuff like Black VIP and Rollage VIP. It was all like these VIPs and dubplate versions.
Yeah. I'm not into
But
the VIP, but I get it. Um, yeah, and then you
we
become a DJ out in a club and you realize 3 or 4 tracks on a side actually sucks.
yeah. Um, Eventually we started hitting Music Now in DC and Modern Music in Baltimore. Music Now became like it became Yoshitoshi. It was in Georgetown, but
Hmm.
that became like Wednesday nights. Like we'd go there because that was when the new records got put on the floor. But
Yep.
I also got into mail order and calling Breakbeat Science, and I'd call Breakbeat Science, and it
Yep.
was probably Justin, DJ Quartz, or Evan for real that I probably got on the phone the most. And I just remember playing them stuff from mixtapes and be like, "Do you know what this is? Do you know do you have it?" And they were like, it sounds like," and they were actually pretty good. They were like, "It sounds like
Yeah.
something on V recordings, or it sounds like a Ram record, but it's not
Well, they
out
would
yet."
play you shit over the phone too, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
God bless them. They were responsible for a lot of music drifting throughout the country too.
And then Scotty at Forefront in Boston, he had the same sort of business model. He plays stuff over the phone. He was more of a salesman though. I bought a lot of questionable white label because there was a point where you're like, I'm buying everything white label because I want to stand out. And then
Right.
after you've had the white label for about 6 months, you're like, I'm not really into this record.
Well, I remember like the arms, like I forget what year it probably was, but it was probably close to like I'd probably been DJing for a couple of years, so it was probably like 99, 2000. Um, and there was like this arms race of you have to play new records at every gig you have, and I was playing at least once or twice a week. You have to have new
Mhm.
records, and so there was this constant pressure every week to buy new records. I bought some shitty records.
Yeah. Or
It's one thing
or
to buy like digital tracks now that like won't stand the test of time, but like we were paying 10, 12 bucks, a record back then,
Get a terrible compilation for that one banger, like the one
right?
track that you like. Um,
That's the other thing nobody gets. It's like, sure, there were two tracks on the side. You would very rarely play both sides of the record. Very rarely did you get lucky enough to find a record where you were like, yes, I have an occasion to play both of these and I want to play both of these.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So, record store. Yeah. So, we started talking about that a little bit last night, which I got off of I got off of talking really quick because I was like, I don't want to talk about this now. I want to talk about it, on the
save
stream.
it for the call.
Hey, good shepherd, good to see you, homie. Glad you're here.
What's up, John?
Um, uh, but the record store. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I remember I was living in Austin when I started DJing. It
Hmm.
was 97. And so the big store here then was Alien Records. And that place is a dentist's office now, which cracks me up. It's expensive real estate now, but I remember, I forget what day of the week it was, where, there was literally one day a week and it just depended on where you were. And that was when the records came in. And you would have to fight for them. And like, I know I would call and be like, I want this, don't give it away. And they would like put my name on it. And, but sometimes somebody would come in and snipe that record. They'd be like, I know you got it back there. I'm ready to buy it right now. And then they would snipe the record from you. But and then we got really lucky and they started letting us order off of the order sheet, and that was rolling the dice like every time, like, okay, well, it's on Moving Shadow. I love Moving Shadow, so it'll probably be fine, and it's Moving Shadow, so most of the time it totally was. But you know it was, but like that feeling of like it's released, it's release day. I'm gonna go in. I either ordered records I've never heard or I didn't order any records. So I got to get in there and I got to get in there fast. And I got to beat everybody there and then figure out, what I want. And like the conversations you would have, and like oh, have you heard of this artist? What about that? Oh, what's that record you got over there? Oh, well, it's this. And, like, what a vibe. I mean,
Yeah.
what a vibe. What was your local record store there? You mentioned the name of it. I mean, I'm assuming
Uh,
when did you start DJing?
so I actually started playing radio in '97. I did college radio,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't beat match until '98. I don't even remember what the turning point was, but suddenly it was like, oh wait, I can beat match. Like, and now I can put together a tape and give it to a promoter. So I
Mm-hmm.
started playing. I started playing at clubs and stuff in '98, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a couple times a month, like starting out.
Mm-hmm.
I you know
Mm-hmm.
I got to a point where I was playing like once or twice a week, but the record shop was music. No, the one we started going to, the like Tower kind of dried out at a certain point, probably like '97 or '98, and my buddy Ben and I started. It became like a regular thing, and I was in a DJ crew by '98. I was in the Step Syndicate. I was like part of the second wave to join the crew. Um,
Ooh.
Ben was one of the founders with our friend Benson, who went by Rec, and our friend Jeff Freefall was part of that. But Ben Coe and I um, had the most similar taste in music. Like everyone kind of had their own sort of like, oh, Benson's going to play a lot of like Moving Shadow stuff and Audio Couture, and Harry's
Ah.
going to play a lot of like Ram records and Virus and stuff like that. And it was like these circles that crossed over.
Yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
Ben and I would started going to Music Now on Wednesdays, because Wednesday afternoon is when they put the new records out. We'd get records and we'd get food from like a place like nearby, like somewhere in that neighborhood. Like Ben
Mm-hmm.
and I ate out. So Ben had like a real estate job. Like he dropped out of college and was doing real estate and was making like ridiculous money like early on. And so that created this like lifestyle of eating out way too much and buying tons of records. But and we go back to his house and we spin records like for hours. and like other people from the crew would come and hang out sometimes. But we were such regulars, you started to recognize other regulars, and then you start to see those regulars at parties, and it became like the hey, what's up? Saw you at the shop. Cool. How you doing? And then
Yeah.
eventually it's like, hey, what's going on? We're going to this party. You want to go? Yeah, let's go. Like, so my friend Maddie, it was like Matt Nordstrom, Will Reeves. I think their friend. There was like three of them. Matt and Will, I became like good friends with. Matt was going to school in Richmond, but eventually was back in the DC area. He ended up working for Yoshitoshi for like the deep dish guys. Like he became their
Hmm.
studio engineer. But yeah, like playing, like just hanging out, like getting involved, like sort of, you know how a lot of people are starting to collab now. Like that was like the version of
Yeah.
people starting to collab then. Um,
Yeah.
the
I mean,
icebreaker with Matt.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. I
No,
was going
no.
to say the icebreaker with Matt and them is that I took a trip to England for New Year's 98, 99. It was eight of us went over to visit a friend of ours studying in Sheffield. And so we did a New Year's Eve party in Sheffield. We went to Manchester for a day. We went to like another house thing in Sheffield. The New Year's party had drum and bass. Like that was like Fabio Pesce, Tech Hitch Decoder, and some
Oh, what a
formation people.
crap lineup. It's too bad you weren't there for a good one.
Fabio
Damn.
is the opener because they play so many shows in a night. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
Mental Power, they were on the lineup,
Oh,
and
wow.
my friend was friends with my friend Anna, became friends with them. So like they're giving us shout outs on the mic like the whole night. And then the girls I was with, they're stealing beer from the DJ booth during Tech Etch and Decoder set because they had like a whole case of Red Stripes, and they're like going up there and sneaking Reds. Like I don't know how I drank so much back then. It was terrible. But that trip bought there's three of us that were DJs. We bought so many records. When we got to London, we were in London for 4 days. I went to Black Market Records like every day. We went to Sister Ray and Section 5 and like a bunch of other secondhand shops and just came back with like a huge stack of records. And
Yeah.
so Slant was the DJ buyer at Music Now, and he was like, "Yeah, it's like he's very just not just like kind of cool, like whatever." And he's just like, "Yeah, why don't you bring the records by? Like, bring
Very
you can play
chill.
them at just bring them by when you come by. Like, just play them at the shop." So I'm there with like all these white labels and like promos, and just like, and I got this, and I got this, and I got. And so Matt and his friends were like, "Oh my god, like what is it?" And so it was fun, and then that just kind of it also helped that like Matt's friend Will started dating my friend Juhi at one point. They met at a virus. Ed Russian Optical played 4th of July in DC, and she was moving to New York, and he was moving to North Carolina, and they started dating. They dated for years. It I don't know, these funny like crossovers.
Yeah.
So that would have
Yeah.
been
I mean,
'99.
I don't even know how many hours I must have spent in the record store. But I look back and I'm like, how the hell did I buy all these records? Because, like, in 4 years of like regular DJing, the amount of vinyl that I acquired, I'm like, I know I wasn't making jack shit for money. How did I afford all of these records? I wasn't making a
So
bunch of money DJing either. That was
yes,
absolutely an in the red endeavor.
uh, I know Will Miles. My friend Matt used to hang out with Will Miles down in Richmond. Like Richmond, the Richmond guys like Will, Chell, Aaron Il-Omen. I know Korax knows Aaron Il-Omen, but all those guys. Yeah, John nailed it. PSA time. Talk to your kids about credit cards and
Oh
credit
my God.
spending. Don't let them learn by racking
The
up
hard way.
$15,000 in credit card charges before I was
Don't
21.
don't let them fall for the free credit card offer on campus the first week of college.
Oh, we'll get a free
Um,
T-shirt. It's like this
yeah, yeah,
T-shirt's stiff and ugly, and yes, I'll
yep,
take it.
yep. I'll
Yeah.
absolutely take it.
So
Luckily, you don't have to worry about your kids getting on Columbia
I
Music. Um,
didn't
but I
fall
mean,
for
I
that
did
one.
get a lot of good CDs, but I spent a lot of money for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah. You look back and like I remember some of my W-2s, and I'm like, how? Like I don't even know how I ate for like $13,000 in a year.
So
Like it's madness.
I racked up a lot of credit card debt, Part of it was trips. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely paid. I paid for a trip to Colorado to go snowboarding. But I also I bought an emu sampler for like $2,000. Did not know how to use it. I didn't sound like optical instantly. Um, there's a lot of records, DJ equipment. It took me like 7 years to pay it off, but I paid it off.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the help that I got help. My dad helped me get a secure loan. Like
Mm-hmm.
basically, he put up the money like with the credit union, but like it was his money, and then I paid that. It was like guaranteed that I was going to pay back, and I paid it back. So I learned a lesson with that. So
Yeah. Well, we just got a raid from Mr. Burnt Yogurt. Thank you so much, Matt,
ooh,
for that raid.
thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it. We are here with the one and only Harry Ransom talking all the old people shit about back in the day. And we haven't told anyone to get off our lawns yet, but the night is young.
Yeah,
Um, we might. We still might. Um, but oh god, I forget. Oh yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you. So you mentioned the sampler, and you didn't sound like optical instantly.
yeah.
First of all,
I
I thought of these. Oh, go ahead.
I still don't sound like optical. I never will sound like optical. There is
Right.
only one. There is only one Matt optical.
Well, and then
Best is
like,
the late '90s optical
well, and
for
then
me.
Groove Rider sounded like optical because optical was his engineer, right? Like,
Yep.
madness. But I thought of you, and I thought of this the other day, and I was like, or this morning, I was like, I wonder if I still have them. The first DAW I ever touched in 2001
Oh yeah.
was Acid Pro 3.0. Wow, what a piece of shit. Um, SoundForge.
Yeah.
SoundForge. When, if you wanted a reverb on your shit, you had to take it into SoundForge, do all of your effects on it, and then take it back into the DAW. And hope you did a good job and that you could get it right.
My
Um,
my
what
early
was your
forays
first experience?
was the destruct like the copying and pasting on top of each other in SoundForge. Like I made tracks in SoundForge. I don't know how, and I played them for DJ Kane at one point.
Wow.
So DJ Kane got booked to play in DC at Buzz. He's from Trouble on Vinyl for anyone that might not know who DJ Kane is. And so he was doing a tour in the States. He was a lot of tours would start in DC because it was a Friday night in the Dulles International Airport in
Yep.
BWI,
Yep.
Baltimore Washington International. So the Buzz got his Kane's management to like agree to come on the radio show. He was like he didn't make the show, but he and his cousin who was traveling with him were like, "We'll just go back to your house. We'll record a mix at your house." And I'm like, "What? You?" And so I called like a bunch of like it was probably like 8 of my friends came and hung out, and so Kane recorded a mix that was like 90% dub plates in
Wow.
my little basement DJ setup. First time I ever heard optical slip through from the Wormhole album. He didn't like how the mix sounded and was like, "I'm gonna roll another mix." Did 2 mixes at my house before going to play Buzz that night. But
Wow.
while he was hanging out, like him and his cousin, like they smoked weed with my friends and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, like I'm learning to produce. Can I play you some stuff?" And it's like Amen breaks that you downloaded off the internet. Like I don't even know what file format they were at that time, and played it. And he was like, "Safe, mate, safe." And it's just like, "All right, cool." And yeah, it wasn't cool. It was like
Yeah. I found an old
all
loops CD too. I can't wait to put that in the
oh
play in the
mine
USB
it.
drive and find out.
See if there's anything cool in it, like anything you can
Yeah.
salvage.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I found a couple actually that have some old stuff in it. I actually have from back in the day some amens that are still that are worth using. Um but yeah, Soundforge. Oh my god, I can't even like so I started trying to produce in 2001.
Mhm.
What a different world. Like
Right.
you had to have hardware. You had to. And it was expensive and it was hard to learn. And if you there was no YouTube to tell you how to do all this shit. Like it was lonely and hard and
I have
yeah.
thoughts on all that.
Yeah.
So the mentality was that you needed hardware. But
Hmm.
in 2001, you had TechItch, Dom and Roland, I think, and a couple other people in that cohort. Maybe I don't think Conflict at that time, but they were moving towards using Logic in a sound
Right.
card. So we're hearing murmurs of that. It was like 2002 is when it was like, okay, that's what they're using, because part of it is DC. We had Synthetics, who it was Rob F. Impulse and MC Mecca. They were
Hmm.
like the first big drum and bass signing from DC, from the DC
Hmm.
area, because they ended up on No U Turn and Trouble on Vinyl and Renegade Hardware. Um,
I have to pause for
they were
just 1 second. I'm going to be
yeah.
listening. Keep telling this story. I will be right back. Too
All right,
much water. So I'll be right back.
all right. So
Tell
I'm
the
just gonna
story because I'll be
ramble.
hearing.
Okay, so mute the mic. Um, the the so they were learning like kind of like industry trade. People, someone would come to play DC and they wanted like TV came to play DC and want to hang out with Robin and Josh, and so Robin and Josh would entertain him, and it was a lot of talking shop and like learning about how TV and like his group of friends were using stuff. And then Kamal and Rob Data come to play DC. Kamal like books an extra day or two to hang out with Rob and Josh and work on music with them, and they learn like the techniques that he's using at the time. So there was that move to using a computer, a DAW then, and just they're trying to figure out the limits of it. But a lot of us were like stuck on, I need an EMU, I need a Mackie, I need monitor, like just this is what I hear you have to have. One thing that I don't think it's discussed enough when people talk about how hard it was to produce back then, I don't think it was as hard in England because they had stuff like youth centers, they had studios that you could rent out, you could book time with an engineer, like I think Ed Solo was like a big engineer at the time. Pete Voyager was a big engineer at the time. Nico was a big engineer. Dom and Roland, he was an engineer. So people would book time at studios that they worked at. That person would engineer for them, and the producer, like someone like let's say Mampy Swift, they learned some stuff from that engineer that they took on and helped develop their skills. And I think that like the sharing, like the spreading of knowledge, uh,
Yeah. I mean,
was
we used
a
to
lot.
talk. Go
It was a
ahead.
lot different. It was a lot different back then, especially in England. And I don't think that was happening here in the states with drum. Like we know it wasn't happening here in the drum and bass with
Right.
states. You didn't
Right.
really. I feel that we didn't. We like people in the United States were not seeing it until Funkatech really started to come into their own because
Yes.
they had that collective. They were sharing knowledge among each other. They were also kind of pooling. Like Hive was a late member to Funkatech, but Hive brought in like a certain skill set that was then augmented by like Echo and Abstract and
Yep.
UFO, and like they started to pool this knowledge together, and it developed like their styles. The other thing is, earlier we talked about like U.S.
Hmm.
Canada was a big part of
Yep.
drum and bass in North
100%.
America in the
Vinyl
'90s.
Syndicate crew. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Massive.
there were a couple like Double A and Twist from Montreal. They went on to become known as Dune. They were like one of the last releases on Basement Records. They also lived in DC in '98 for about a year. That was the first time I ever saw an Emu sampler, and that's the first time I'd ever seen a drum and bass studio. Is that Aaron Double A played my radio show? I drove him home into DC, and he was like, "You want to come in and see the studio?" That's the first time I saw like the Emu Mackie in Atari ST setup. Um, the guys in Toronto, they had like their own little knowledge share because
Right.
like Slip and Slide, I can't remember. One of them was like the main producer of the two,
Hmm.
but then there were other producers that were coming up in Toronto, and they were sharing knowledge among each other. That some
Mystical
of that may have been
influence.
Sniper,
Yeah.
Missile Influence, and Sniper were brothers. Um, they were getting info from the UK DJs that were coming and playing. Like, so they were learning a little bit, and like as a collective, they started to develop.
That's why,
So
who is it? Is it GQ that's on Dubplate Pressure? That's it's because they were bringing all that talent into Toronto. That's how they got that vocal
yeah,
for that record that is still an incredible record. DJ Slip is a streamer on Twitch,
is he?
and they do have a Bandcamp. Yep. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
great. His stream is hysterical. Like, his crew of people that's always there with them is amazing. They're always drunk as fuck. Like, I don't know how, and they go until like 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how they do it. It's
yeah.
amazing.
I saw John mention Side Dream. Jeff like goes with Jeff
Yeah.
is like a Vancouver guy. Jeff Side Dream and Pacific.
Yep.
There are a couple other producers from Vancouver, but like those were like the main two for me. Side Dream now lives in Edmonton,
Mm-hmm.
wherever yeah. So
Harry.
I'll give a shout out to the Council of Harrys, which is myself, Harry Haymack, who calls me Harry number one. It might be because I'm the oldest Harry. Then we've got a Harry B son, who he had something on Program. He's had some stuff on Solvent. He's got stuff coming out on Marquis Interground label. And then
Nice.
loosely we have Harry HD from
Yep. Yep.
Manchester.
Yep.
And we know of a couple other Harrys. We're very Harry friendly. We have talked about like all being at a festival at some point and like getting a flag that just says Harry on it and just like put it up and see what happens. And I can't remember which Polo and Bryson. One of them is
Is
it
also
Jack?
Harry. Yep.
Yeah, Harry.
Harry Bryson, I think. I think it's
So
Bryson that's Harry.
that would be funny if he saw the flag and came over. I was like, "Hey guys." Um, I don't
I
know.
personally have the Council of Mats.
Okay,
There's Secret Structure, Mr. Burt Yager, Matty Pacific, Mr. Rayner is a Matt. I know there are others. Like, it's like the '90s
Matt.
when I had 12 friends named Jeff.
Yeah,
Like,
was there
inescapable.
sketchy Jeff, skateboarder Jeff, like friendly Jeff, like
Stoner Jeff,
Jeff with
Jeff
a
that could
G?
Jeff that went to Mexico and brought over like crazy pharmaceuticals and could hook you up, like ambient Jeff. Yeah, there were a lot of Jeffs.
We
Um,
had a KY Jeffy in DC. He was a house DJ.
that's amazing. But
Yeah,
I think like the biggest thing about production back then from where I was, like from where I saw it, was in the UK, you have a landmass literally significantly smaller than Texas, a
yeah.
single state. And so knowledge could spread a lot faster
hmm
amongst more people. Whereas here, like in Texas in 2001, I personally knew, and I was involved in the scene, but I personally knew like maybe five guys that produced, if that.
Arc Archer in real time.
Um, yeah, Archer in real time. This guy named Wes, and why can't I remember his friends? Why am I Oh God, this is terrible. Um, but they produced, but they actually are always in my mind because they very rarely let anybody hear their stuff. And I remember
hmm
thinking, I watched how that worked, and I was like, that's not going to be me. I'm going to finish tracks and I'm going to let people hear them and I'm going to move on because I'm not going to
hmm
learn anything if I won't let go and let people hear my stuff. I won't learn anything. But back then, like you really had to personally know someone
Yeah.
because somebody had to show you how to do it. Like this shit was not intuitive, but like I remember we used to talk shit about like Groove Rider having, optical as his engineer and like I forget who all the other I think why am I spacing on his name?
Goldie had Rob play for. Then he had
Yep,
Tech Itch at some, and I think like Goldie has had several engineers in his lifetime. The thing is, Goldie and Groove Rider, they have ideas, and so the engineer is just like the conduit to get those ideas down.
exactly. Because in a world where you had to have hardware, A, somebody had to pay for it because that shit was expensive. But B, you didn't just pick it up and know how to use it. These guys that were engineers had years of experience. They knew the equipment, they knew what to do. And so duh, like it's so obvious right now looking
Yeah.
back that that it is more than totally legit to like basically have someone drive and you give them directions.
Mhm.
um but I couldn't believe it when I opened up Ableton in 2020 and I was like, what you can do all this shit in the DAW? Like I could, and it's all like already there. Like I don't need plugins or any, like there's instruments there, there's all the effects. Like I was in heaven, like just in heaven. And then like YouTube and all that is available, but the internet, like I can ask you for production advice. I can ask John. I can poor Matt Secret Structures has heard so many shitty whips from me and he is still my friend. um, I can't believe it. He has heard me agonize over a bass line. Um, but like just the like you can take lessons now because drum and bass is big enough that like it's big enough and the technology's there to actually take lessons from somebody. It's crazy how much faster the knowledge can spread, how accessible all of this stuff is now.
It's
I'm
it's helped it's helped me. It's helped me a lot. I mean, early on, so my progress early on, there's a lot I think that I learned early on, and that was through people showing me. Like Ed UFO really taught me how to use an emu sampler. I mean, granted, it's like a very particular way that I learned how to use it, but if I still I forget who mentioned they still have an emu in the chat. Like, if you want to mail it to me, like you can mail it to me. Like I'll make some funny bass noises with it, and like I can do the flangey like Reese. That is like the big Reese sound of like 2002. Like someone showed me how to do that, and I remember it. But
yes.
I I've had an emu a couple times since the first one. I sold that and I got another one. My old roommate Brian sold me his for like $200 with like a bunch of CDs, and I bought a
Oh
SCSI
wow.
CD-ROM, and I had it for a few years. And then when I moved to Boston, I was like, hey Brian, I don't think I sold off a lot of stuff. Like I wasn't giving up production. I just knew that we weren't going to have the space initially, so I got rid of a
Right.
lot of stuff and sold it back to him for $200. He's now like 100% hardware with his like techno and ambient projects. I'll send his artist name now is Hot Wave, but he used to be part of Robot Death Squad with Evan Hybris, who is in Prague and like super techie. Like Noisia loves him. Um, and they were the last release ever on Moving Shadow. Brian was my roommate for like 4 years. But
Oh
yeah,
wow.
Brian's got a ton of equipment. We never collaborated. Like I wasn't producing when we were roommates. Um, I didn't have the interest in it at the time. And then when I finally got interested in it again, it was because of dubstep. But Brian is the one that introduced me to dubstep. And this is like DJ Distance and Scream and Benga, like that type of dub, like the early dubstep, the DMZ, DMZ. I say DMZ, Mala and Koki and all that stuff. Um,
Imagine my horror when somebody sends me Burial and they're like, you got to listen to this dubstep. It's amazing. And the next dubstep I hear is fucking bro step. I'm like, flip the table. What the fuck is this? Like, I have been tricked. I have been deceived. Like,
what if it was a burial? What if it was a burial bootleg? How would you feel about that? Just
I
draw
mean,
you in. It's just like,
he can make whatever music he wants. It's fine. I
no,
mean,
someone makes a
like
bro
I'll
step.
say this, like
Like,
I'm really I'm really particular and it's not like back in the day where like if you like music, I don't like that. If I don't like it, it's shit. Like I'm way beyond that attitude now. But uh, uh, I heard what like literally my favorite track that got released last year was this Bicep bootleg that Corrupted Mind did. And I went 20 years not really paying attention to releases and stuff. So I didn't know who the hell Corrupted Mind was. So I go to his SoundCloud because I'm like, this is amazing. This shit is awesome. Probably because I'm a sucker for gating and if I finish this tune I'm on right now, it's gonna be like a giant filleting the gate kind of thing. um, but I was so excited, and I'm like, I hate all this other shit. What the hell?
Yeah,
The good old bait and switch. He hooked me. He got my SoundCloud follow, but
yeah.
it's
I've got a couple tracks that I want to bootleg because I like the intros and I don't like the rest of the tracks.
yep, yep,
And then I might just be quiet about what if I start doing more DJ sets, they might just be like Harry Ransom specials.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
VIPs for Harry Ransom.
Yeah.
So
I've
what
got
year?
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
Oh,
no.
I was gonna say I had a release on Four Corners on a compilation. It was like the end of December. I now have a VIP that I've made for myself because the track originally started as a bootleg, and I took all the bootleg parts out, and
Mm-hmm.
the non bootleg version is what I sent to the label as a demo, and that's what they
Mm-hmm.
signed. So I got a version mastered that has parts removed, and then I can just put in the bootleg part. I can make like so many different VIPs of it now, and I think it's a process that I might do like more often, just to kind of
Yeah.
have like my my little stack of specials.
Kind of like a skeleton, and then you can throw different things on
Just you
top
know,
of
it's
it.
costume jewelry. It's my mannequin,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's those glasses that have the changing frames. You know, you pull one off, put another one on. It's like that.
Yeah,
Um, so when did you start producing? Because you've been at it a minute.
I think it was 98 or 99 is when I started dabble, and I think about 2000 to 2002, maybe 2003, I was being a bit more diligent about it, but
Mm-hmm.
also it wasn't fast progress. But I had friends that were producing. I was starting to learn stuff off of them, and because I was involved in throwing parties and meeting people, like I would go to San Francisco a lot, and like
Yeah.
UFO and Echo would show me stuff here and there. Chaos used to talk to me about like techniques, and we would copy sample CDs, and there's like this big network of like sample CDs that people had because
Mm-hmm.
we're you buy one and you copy it and get like 20 others.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
I had some stuff happen. I had a track come out with Marcio Telemetric when he was part of Corrupt Souls. It came out on Moving Shadow. It was a Corrupt Souls featuring Ransom track. There was some stuff that went down with that, not with the label, but with Marcio and Josh from Corrupt Souls that bummed me out about production, and that turned me off for several years. I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm not interested. So I took probably like 5 or 6 years off. I also played a lot of video games during that time. Um,
As one
and
does.
eventually, yeah, and eventually, I think like 2009 or so is when my interest came back. It was like there's too many what ifs. Like why don't I try? And it's been a slow progression since then, but 2016 or so is when I booked time with Heist, and I
Yeah.
did some sessions with him. I learned some stuff, and then saw other options, and just so many. There's so many like avenues to learn now, and like yeah,
It's
it's just
crazy.
there's a lot. And now,
It's unbelievable.
yeah, I was really involved with Sample Genie for a while. Like I was a subscriber, if anyone's heard of Sample Genie, and I got active in their forums. I was coming up with production challenges, and the guys that run Sample Genie liked what I was doing. And after about 6 months, they were like, "We're going to make you a mod on our forum, and as a mod, we're going to give you a comp Sample Genie membership." So I had that for like 3 years or so. I was
Oh
just getting
wow.
free samples, the videos, everything. And eventually they wanted to stop doing the production challenges. I lost the free membership. I stopped looking at Sample Genie, but I'm friends with Lee DJ, not DJ, but Quadrant
Mm-hmm.
in Seattle. Um, I know him from like way back when he used to live in Philadelphia. That's like the first time I met him, and
Wow.
he was an artist with Sample Genie like their second season, and I would send him questions like direct sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
he will he's just a fountain of information, but sometimes his information will steer you to buying more equipment and more like plugins.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it eventually took me a little bit, about $400 later, I realized, okay, don't buy everything Lee says to check out. Like demo stuff and test it out and figure out if it's what you want or if you already have stuff. But I got along with Lee and I was like, hey, would you do one-on-one production lessons? He was like, hell no. I got a full-time job. He's a programmer at Splice. He's a parent. He and his wife, Karen Iris, they have a kid that's like close in age to my oldest. So it's like, yeah, kids eat up a lot of time and energy. And
Yeah.
they have their own production that they got to worry about. He was like, who you need to talk to is Phil. He's like, he was like, I am friends with Phil. I hang out with Phil. I love Phil. You should talk to Phil. And I knew Phil's stuff. I wasn't like super in depth with it, but I'd sent him some demos like a couple months before, and he got back to me. He had like
Mm-hmm.
feedback. He was like, I might want to play like one or two of these. So I followed up with him like December-ish time, because he does like a special where he'll do like a 2-hour session for half the price he normally does.
Mm-hmm.
So we did like one or two sessions, hit it off. Our 2-hour sessions were becoming, an hour of chit chat, like anything from like old tunes, like Marcus, like I love Marcus Intellects. I love Marcus Intellects too. What's your
Let's
favorite
wax
Marcus Intellects
poetic
track?
about, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, how many records did you buy this month? Like, just funny conversations. Like, I love gelato. I love gelato too. We should hang out. Let's like it was fun. And if anyone loves NBA basketball, Phil loves NBA. Like, if anyone's trying to find an inroad with some of these like pro producers, don't talk to them about production. Find out the stuff that they love. Like, I know that Red
How
Eyes, like,
how 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 long has he been watching the NBA? Because I haven't been following, but I can talk. I can talk about the Rockets in the '90s.
oh, he's big on 90. I think he actually watches like old '90s games sometimes.
Nice. He's
In the
he's a
'90s,
he's a professor too, isn't he? Or he's like a like.
he so his credentials, he got a master's in teaching, like music education,
Mhm.
and he worked for a school for like 2 or 3 years, but he left that, I think, 2.5 years ago, like right before
Mhm.
the pandemic. He
Mhm.
left that to go full time with his 101 instruction, like the DJing wasn't happening for a little bit because of the pandemic.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, his main thing is the 101s now, his DJ schedule, and like he's working on album. He's got so many different projects. Like,
Mhm.
he's a machine when it comes to writing music.
Yeah.
But we hit it off. Like, that that's something I find important, is that if you can connect with a person and like just kind of have fun, it's not so dry. Like, you become more engaged, you
Right.
become more excited about what you're doing. You've got someone that's like excited for you. Yeah, it's just a lot of goods come out of like picking up that mentor.
Well, and I think there's a lot to be said for like there's a lot of people that can teach production. Like I don't think this is a requirement, but I think there is a lot to be said for someone that is a trained music educator.
Hmm.
That they're going to approach that in a different, in a different way. But like um I think too, like Michael Alpha Rhythm told me, I think in our first session that we did, he was like, spend money. These are the headphones. This is a decent pair of headphones for a good price. Blah blah blah. But he's like, spend money because you will get serious about it. And like
Hmm.
I've definitely found that I've had like 6 sessions with him, and it's usually like 2 weeks in between, except when that lucky dog went to hospitality on the beach.
Hmm.
But I find that those 2 weeks, I'm busting my butt because I want to have something either new or something that actually I want to have something new every time, but I also want to like incorporate some of the stuff he told me the last time we met. So it is really a way to like build discipline in
Hmm.
for you. Like that's a bonus I didn't really expect in addition to like just the the things that you learn. Um,
It's like my sessions with Phil nowadays are more. He puts on his calendar as artist development. Like, I'll commit to doing 5 sessions like a year,
mhm,
and so he'll cut the price a little bit, but we'll spread them out. Like it might be every like 2.5 months or so, we'll do a session,
mhm,
but like we're messaging each other on Instagram a lot. We're messaging each other on WhatsApp. Like, and a lot of times it's not even about the music stuff. It's just like whatever's going on. Like there's like a friendship that's created. He was actually supposed to stay with us in January for a couple nights.
oh wow.
Because he's got family in the States, so he comes over for a good chunk of time, like for a holiday. And he was like, I want to come meet the family, like hang out. We're gonna drink beer, listen to records, and maybe we'll work on music.
Nice.
But
Nice.
the Omicron variant hit, so his East Coast dates got canceled, and so he
Hmm.
only did West. So he's on the West Coast. He's doing that with like other people. And it's like, but that was supposed to be my birthday. Like, but 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 the flip side too is like he'll play music with intent. So he's doing these tour dates, and he had some of my new stuff in his crates, and he was playing it not at every gig, but he was playing it a lot. So I'm getting videos of like crowds, when he's playing stuff of mine. So
Yeah.
that was pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, uh, I remember the first time I saw it wasn't that long ago. I saw a video on Instagram of Bookham playing one of Matty Pacific's tunes, and I cried because I thought it was so cool. I was so happy for him to see like that moment. But it's probably not that big a deal for him, but I thought it was cool.
No,
Um,
I think Matt's very vocal about like the people that are supporting him, because the guy Dom Whitting plays a lot of
yeah.
Matt's stuff, and like, yeah, Matt's cool. Like I've never met Matt in person, but I've like
Hmm.
emailed him for years. Even when he wasn't doing drum and bass stuff, he was like very involved in sort of like the club, like I don't even know how to describe it, like the overarching club music thing. Like he had a different name, like he was Matty something.
Is that EDM? Is that what the kids call EDM these
No,
days?
this
That's
was
more
like
festival, right?
that. Yeah, this was like club. This is like we're going to a party in Brooklyn. We're going to hear some club music like type stuff. Um, but yeah, I sent stuff to Matt and Side Dream, and like over the years, I've sent them stuff for years. So like now in the last year or so, they're like, yes, and then I listen to a stream, and like they've played some of my stuff, and it's like awesome. They're like,
Yeah,
that's happening.
Bobble just rolled in. I'm sure you have to know who Bobble
I was
is,
gonna, I
right?
was like Bobble that used to live in Baltimore and then like moved to Atlanta.
Yep.
I never met him. I know of him because like I think he used to play like CloudWatch parties in Baltimore, and he played some of the Ultra World parties.
Yep. That's how I knew of Bobble. Welcome in, Bobble. It's good to see you. Um, uh, yeah, I've been really like impressed, shocked, surprised by like how much Six Lessons has changed things for
Hmm.
me. I mean, because like I was doing YouTube videos and all of that, but there's nothing like actually being able to ask somebody, and also hearing the delivered very nicely but very hard to hear critique of and you're paying this person to tell you this, and so it's very valuable feedback. But yeah, that's pretty dope that he would like take your stuff out and send you videos of how people were responding to your music. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
The
That's
other
really
person,
cool.
the other person to shout out is Winslow, because I got involved with
I
his
notice your
Discord
shirt.
server. Yes, yes, I'm part of BSA. My 6-year-old did some of the drops for the BSA radio. We did drops that showed up in almost every episode. Yeah, it's a fun group of internet strangers that are becoming less strange. Um, yeah, so Winslow, I'd seen his stuff for years with like the YouTube videos, and it's
Hmm.
like cool, like he's this is someone that's doing something different. But then just before the pandemic, Justin Hawks, when he was DJ Flight, had an
Mm-hmm.
interview, I guess like on UKF or something, and he had mentioned the Drum and Bass North America Producers Discord, DNA. And
Mm-hmm.
so I joined that. And it's like, just this like list of like people you've heard of over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them chat or they were chat. It's kind of a quiet server nowadays. But Duncan posted a bit, and the thing with him is it's his humor. Like I connect with his type of humor pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
and because like you become familiar to people, they become familiar to you. You start to see
Right.
more interaction with them, like on stuff. So yeah,
Right.
I ended up on his Discord, and eventually started sending him music. And he's played stuff. He's played stuff on Rinse. Like he played stuff on a hospital show. He played stuff on like one of Kino's shows. Yeah, he was playing, and he was playing like rough versions of stuff. Like
Oh, wow.
he wasn't being this is not sonically like perfect. It was just like he was just like, you have a lot of kicks in this track and I love it. Like so, and he'd play it, and it's just like, thank you. Like I'm
Yeah.
now getting like you get that charge where you're like, all right, someone gets it. Like someone noticed I didn't do a two-step pattern. And it's just like awesome.
Yeah, Matt Secret Structures. I rolled into his stream yesterday, and he played a whip of mine that wasn't even finished. I was like, "What? It's still not finished. It will be soon, but um, it needs a mix down, and I need some space from it before I finish that." But uh, it's that feeling is so great. But also, like when I did John Good Shepherd's Good Friday stream, it was so awesome to me that like 80+% of the music that I played, I was playing by people that I know, like that I
Hmm.
actually know now. And that is such an amazing feeling. Like the way that the world has gotten really small. I wasn't involved really in the scene when like that whole aim like explosion was happening and how
Yeah.
that was connecting people, but I've heard the stories. This feels a lot like that. Like it feels a lot like the pandemic drove people to, it drove people to dive more into music, and it ended up connecting a lot of people. And I think it's really good for the music, for the scene, and I'm super excited to see it play out more. Um, yeah, like John said, we have a really good DMB culture going, and I totally agree. Like, I feel like it's really healthy. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's always going to be people that you know are tricky, but like it feels
Not
a
safe.
lot right. But it feels a lot like, oh wow, this person is getting signed. They're really having a great moment. That's amazing. We're all going to celebrate that. And it's full proof that a rising tide raises all boats, right? Because
Hmm.
like John Good Shepherd gets signed, and then he's like, somebody signs one of his tunes, and he's like, hey, I have this remix with somebody else, and and it filters out and starts getting your friends' music in front of people, and it's it's so awesome to see it. I'm really excited by it, like seeing all these new connections and collabs and you know all of that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's
That
absolutely amazing.
that I'm starting to dip my toe back into like doing DJ mixes. Like I'm working on one more for Seismic Sound for his YouTube channel.
Hmm.
I've I promised him a mix like 7 months ago. Um, but he had a limitation. He was like, it has to be a liquid mix. And
Oh yeah.
I like liquid. Like I have like my stuff like, I have my crates of stuff.
Hmm.
But what I'm into usually is like a bit techier, a bit bouncier, like harder
Hmm.
stuff. But I had something very specific in mind that I wanted to do for his channel, and just trying to source the tracks for it. That like I have the tracks. It's just like getting it organized to record it. But like the other mixes I've done three in the last month. Like I did. I played a show for the first time in years. I played at Elements in Boston. Um,
Nice.
they
How
had
did that go,
me.
by the way? I feel like I saw you mention it. How was it?
It was fun. I had a lot of fun. I played. a third of the set was my own stuff, which was wild because there were, I mean, at times I think at peak there were maybe like 40 people there. It was a weird night because it was the first night of the Celtics final, for the NBA finals. And so the venue is a sports bar and they had like the sports bar crowd. And when the
Oh,
game
wow.
ended, that's when they could start the music. So it was like 11:30 when they started, but there was a group of about 40 people that were there, and it didn't end with 40 people. Like, people go outside to smoke. Like, you can't smoke
Mm-hmm.
inside most venues.
Right.
But at the peak there were about 40 people, but people danced. There was cheering. There was people I had never experienced before. People shazamming the
Oh,
music they're
yeah.
playing,
Yeah.
and to like turn and look at people shazamming, and it's like one of my dubs, and like I'm like, it's me. It's me. This is one of my tracks. Like, it's not out yet. So that was kind of wild to have that happen. But yeah, it was fun. They want to
You
have me
were,
back.
yeah,
Huh?
your set for detached audios thing was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. John's just talking about you on Good Friday sessions.
Yeah, we're gonna
Got
do a
got to
Good
make that
Friday.
happen.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it live. I might have to do record. Like, I'll talk to him about it. But what I'm finding is, Karen K2T, his feedback from the detached set, because I'm gonna do another one for an EP I'm on in August on detached, for the release party. I'm gonna do a set, but he's like, we need a visual. Like, we need something, because like engagement drops on these if there's no presence.
Right.
So, I kind of got to get over the, I look fat in a t-shirt, like, in sweaty, like, mixing records, like, just.
Who are you telling? Like,
Although
I get it.
the other thing is,
Nobody cares as much as you
I
do.
have I have a record collection, but I don't mix records anymore. Like, I listen to
Right.
records, but I'm not mixing them. And when I use Serato, I'm using it with like MIDI control. Like, it's not a MIDI. I don't have a Serato MIDI controller. I have
Hmm.
like a Kai drum pads that I've programmed the MIDI. It's like a
Wow.
custom. It's like a custom. It's like a $100 custom MIDI setup. It's kind of janky, but I know what does what, and it works for me.
Right, right.
Um, and so I can mix really fast on that. Like, I can mix the way I like. I like to hear the music, like the really
You
tight.
have a controller right behind you though, don't you?
Yeah, I've used it twice. It was so I could figure out. It was so I could figure out. I got it for $100, and it was so I could figure out
Hey.
Record Box. And
Yep.
I'm just like, I don't have time to figure out Record Box. Like, I have
Yeah.
to write music. Like,
What
that's
you figured
partly.
out is that record box sucks.
I
I
know,
figured that out also.
I haven't even delved into it. I knew Serato so well from when I used to DJ that, like, I just default to Serato. But the thing
Right.
is, most of my attention for music stuff, I just want to be in the DA. Like, I just want to be doing production stuff. Like, DJing's fun, and I think that I bring something to, like, the wide swath of like DJs. Like, there's
You do.
something that I bring to it. I really just want to have like more of my own stuff, and like, I just want to have music. I just kind of want to put that part of myself into the conversation, like into the drum and bass conversation. Or, I mean, I even have like electro stuff. I've written some electro. Like, I try other
Oh,
tempo.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Yeah, Winslow posted like a little thing of a garage track he's working on, and I'm like, do more. I want it. But that's all I want to do right now. Like, so I started this track on Tuesday morning, and I'm super into it. Like, I've reached, for now anyway, a tipping point where things are starting to come together more quickly, which is really exciting.
mhm.
Um, and I remember thinking tonight, damn it, all I want to do is work on this track, but I really want to talk to Harry too. I'm like legit torn right now. In fact, I ended up like
It's
muting
like
Mr. Burnt Yogurt and spending like 30 minutes in there working on some tweaks that I had written down.
it's
Um,
either like get all excited, like, we're gonna work on music. It's like, we
yep,
have this conversation, we're gonna start working, or it's like,
yep.
I'm gonna go to bed.
Well, John and I have talked about this, that like a lot of times we'll be listening to a DJ, on Twitch, and you're in your house, and they're if the DJ is really good and their music they're playing is really good, often it will come to a point where it's like, wow, I'm really loving this, but I am inspired, and all I want to do now is I want to stay, and all I want to do is go so I can work on music. It's neat. It's That's the other great thing about like the way everybody's connecting is there's lots of inspiration to be had. Um, Lots of opportunities for ideas, right, to come to you. Um,
You
but
just have to be open.
yeah, well, and like you were talking about, that like as a DJ, like liquid isn't necessarily where you want to go, but like all the time. But as I was putting together a mix for our my opening video of your stuff, I was like, God, I don't even have all of your stuff, and it is a big like variety of styles. Like you have some really amazing like liquid stuff, and then you have some shit that's like super hard. And trying to come up with 10 minutes that really worked. You might be mad because I did key shift some of them so I could make them fit together the way I wanted to. But uh, like I love that, and like John and I have talked about that too. That like some people want to just lean into one style, and that's
Mhm.
awesome. And then other people just want to go like, you know, where the mood takes them. But like your set on detached audio was so great on that stream. Like it made me so happy to be hearing stuff that sounded like Tech Step and Neurofunk from, the late 90s, which was a really exciting time for me um, in drum and bass. And it's so cool to know that like people are still making that kind of stuff, and like people still want to listen to it. I loved your set. It was fantastic.
Thank
But
you.
as far as pre-recorded, Jason Inky has done 2 mixes now for Good Friday sessions that were pre-recorded, and he does have video. And I'm telling you, they were amazing. So
Mhm.
like he hung out in the chat, but obviously like he's what, like 13 hours ahead of us or something crazy like that. Um, but people will still be really engaged as long as the chat is lively, even if the stuff is recorded. Um, so the world needs to hear more of your stuff. I like you know every DJ has their own sound that they like and their own way that they like to mix it. Like what tracks go together in their minds, and what should come after something else. And yeah, I
I,
you have that.
I
Give
come
it
up
to
with
the
themes.
world.
I come up with themes. Like so the first mix I did in years was for Winslow for the Bad Snares Anonymous radio last year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was working out my idea for the set, he had just done the De La Soul bootleg. Um, I can't remember. Stakes is High, which is a great album. I try to convince him we should do a BSA shirt that's like the same font, but it's Bad Snares Anonymous instead of Stakes is High. In my, I most of my messages to Duncan are like T-shirt idea, and then like just ideas that I come up with that like we just haven't done anything with, but they're committed to paper. But when I was coming up with that mix, um, there was a point where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have this segment where I'm gonna have like 5 bootlegs, and they're all gonna be like hip hop tracks that were bootlegged to drum and bass tracks. So like, I had the Stakes is High bootleg. I had a Tribe Called Quest bootleg that Shabumi out in San Francisco that he had done. Um, Stressing Out. Um, it's got like this great like I can't remember who the vocalist is, but there were like a couple things that like I was gonna, and then I ended up not doing like that segment, but like one or two of the tracks still got in there. I still had like a Shibumi track in the mix, but when I listen to music, like I will hear threads that like stitch stuff together, and that tends to be like what I'm putting together when I do these mixes, or like some of my own stuff is influenced by what I'm listening to, or it's like an acknowledgement of something I heard somewhere else. It's like a nod to that, or like I've got stuff coming out that started out as like jokes, think breaks, the whole
Yes,
capacity.
yes.
Like Colossus is the one that came up with a capacity like for the think break. Like they, the whole there's this whole
Oh, is
conversation.
that what it's from? Like what the vocalization is?
That's what Toby thinks
I've been
it's
trying to
saying.
figure out what that. I love it. I
And
love that.
so something happened on a Sunday night, and it just triggered something. I was like, "That's what I'm going to do." And I spent an hour, and I made this like 1 minute track that was, I think it was like Bo, like Poison. Like it was based off of that. And we brought up the formation, the highly recommended thing, and there's like the VIP, like VVVIIIPPP,
Yes, yes.
and Super Sharp Shooter, where they would spell out Super Sharp Shooter, and it's a
Yep.
LL Cool J sample. So like I made a version, it spelled out Kapasi, and then right before the drop, it's like Toby's like Kapasi, and then it goes into the track, and everyone got a laugh out of it. And then I'm playing it the next day, and I'm like, this is kind of fun. So I took out some of the stuff. I took out like the Kapasi, like saying Kapasi. There's still a vocal sample of Toby. The little like there's like a little vocal hit that happens. It's still in the track. And yeah, it's coming out on Four Corners.
That's amazing. I love that. Do you know, I've always loved the Think Break, right? And I've
Mm-hmm.
never known what it was called. I only learned in like 2020 what that it was actually called the Think Break. In fact, I think I have a link to. I met this guy, Beers and Beats, here on Twitch. He pointed me to a video that he had done about the Think Break. And I didn't realize that like there's actually four or five super recognizable breaks that come out of that. If you've ever heard It Takes Two by Rob
Mm-hmm.
Bass, and if you haven't heard that, you're
Yeah, so I went
dead.
I went to middle
Like it
school in the
has like
United
four
States.
different ones, right? Exactly. I've been to a wedding. I've heard that. Um uh there's like four or five different breaks from that record
Mm-hmm.
in that track. Yeah, I've always loved that, and it was so hard to describe it when I didn't have the name for it, right? And I'm terrible. Like I don't know the names of anything. I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard that. I know that's like I only this year kind of know how to like identify an Apache and like all of that other crap. I'm like, it's cool break. That's it.
Yeah, but
Take
but
care,
but it's
John. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. This will go up on YouTube. So yeah, don't worry
and I
about
was gonna
that.
say,
It'll be there.
also I was gonna say it. Don't worry about knowing like the breaks. Like it's
Yeah.
fun. Like it's good to like know
Yeah.
some history, but you don't need to like be able to pass like a dissertation or an exam about breaks. Like sure, there's someone's gonna try and make you feel little because you don't know like what generation like that particular break came from. Like it was sampled off a hip hop record rather than the soul funk record. But like
Right.
whatever. Like make tunes, like have fun with it, keep making
Yep.
tunes, like stuff comes
Man,
together.
I was a drum and bass DJ in 1997. Believe me, I know all about people trying to make you feel small because you don't know shit. I ain't got shit to prove to anybody now. It's amazing. It's the best feeling. But I remember I listened to you on Winslow's podcast, and that's what actually made me reach out to you and be like, "Yeah, we really got to do this." And you were talking about production, and basically it was something along the lines of, yeah, you're gonna make shit, but it's gonna be your shit.
Hmm.
It'll be shit that you made. And man, I'm living and dying by that. Like yeah, you know what, this isn't great, but I made it. And do you know
Yeah.
how many people didn't make a not great track today? I made it. And like I still have my first stuff is up on my SoundCloud, and I don't know if they'll like there is a a sensitivity to them, right? Because like the first track I ever did was a Beck remix, and that's how I got into a DAW for the first time. It was a Beck remix contest. But the
Hmm.
second track I ever started, I never finished, and I got back into producing because I found an old backup disc I had made that had the samples, almost all of them. And so I decided I was going to recreate it. And that track is not great. It's arranged horribly. The phrasing on it is all wrong as a DJ, but I love it because I remember what I felt like when I started making it and the headspace I was in. And at the end, it sounded like what I felt. And it's garbage, but it's my garbage and it is special to me.
Um,
Uh, but like we were talking earlier before the show started today about how music production has forced me to reckon with some serious mental health
yeah.
situations. And the biggest one I've learned is about my perfectionism. Like it's really, as a perfectionist, like I've discovered that is not some cute little personality quirk. It is
Mhm.
bad. It is terrible for you. And like you really have to be willing to be total garbage at something before you'll ever get good at it. Like,
Yeah. And I'm gonna be garbage for a long time, like, and I'm cool with it,
yeah,
like, because not everything is gonna be terrible. Like, I'm having fun. I'm making progress. Like, people are connecting with the stuff I'm doing.
right.
Um, Two things. Quick
You gonna get
sidebar
another
for
beer?
Korax. I
Oh
do want to
yeah,
get
yeah.
another beer. This is
Get
the
your
one
beer.
that I. This is what I just had.
Oh,
It's a Berliner Weiss. It was fruit. It was orange, a little orangey. But
what is a vice? I mean, like I've had a Hefeweizen, but that's
yeah,
I don't know
it's
what.
another German style beer. I think Weiss beers tend to be like a session beer, like a light alcohol, low alcohol content, and might be fruity. Like this particular brewery,
Mhm,
it's in the Boston area. It's called Trillium. It's like my
mhm.
favorite in the Boston area. They have a couple like their flagship beers, and this one's called Daily Serving. And so like every month, there's like a different version of Daily Serving that comes out with like a different range of fruit on the lineup. Uh,
Nice.
and this one was the orange. This was calamansi, orange, tangerine, and mandarin.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It was
That sounds
super good.
amazing. Well,
But
he asked if you were a connoisseur. Clearly, you are with what you just told us about that. Feel free to get another beer. I will talk to these lovely people
I was, I was,
in
I'm
the
gonna,
chat.
I was gonna say, in addition to like
Is it
all my
time?
other, yeah, I'm gonna go grab it. But in addition to all my other associations, my friends. I used to have something called Fancy Beer Crew, the FBC. So, and that was from there used to be a radio shop we would do DJ takeovers at, and it would be a BYOB event, and we had a cooler and we wrote Fancy Beer on it, and then people were like, oh, you guys are the Fancy Beer Crew. And it's like, yes, yes, we are, and it's delicious.
I remember the looks we used to get when we would, like, I remember very clearly there was this point where my friends and I stopped doing drugs and we started drinking at raves. And I remember the looks we would get, like, we were like, we were bad guys for drinking at a rave. I'm like, whatever, kid, shut up. I'm a grown up.
Delay, delaying getting my beer. Another connection. So Freefall, who used to be on my DJ crew in the
Uh huh.
'90s, his name is Jeff. He left our crew to meet to team up with this guy Matt Rogers, and their crew is called Catalyst DC, and they wanted to go in a different direction with the music, and we
Right.
were still friends with them. Jeff leaves the DC area, is like living in Michigan, then he's living in North Carolina, and then he comes back to the DC area about 15 years ago, and it's like, what have you been up to? And he was like, I learned how to brew beer, and he was like moving around. Like his now wife was going to grad school in Michigan, and like he got a job at a brewery there. So I think it was 11 or 12 years ago. Jeff and another DJ from the DC area, it was a house DJ. This guy Brandon. They opened up DC Brow, which is like the largest production brewery in DC now. DC didn't have a beer brewery for like 50 years, and so they were the first to market
Wow.
after that period of time. They're having a drum and bass rave at the brewery the Labor Day weekend, and
Nice.
it's DJ Trace, who secretly lives in the DC area. Uh,
And we're
Evan,
back to DJ Trace. I love it.
yeah, Evan Killjoy, who's like a recent friend of mine. People may or may not know, but he is half of Concord Dawn. He currently lives in DC because his wife is stationed there for 3 years for a job, and so he and their daughter, they all moved there a year ago. They're actually back in New Zealand for a month right now. But Evan's playing. Evan's super fun. Like he's a nice guy. Like we've hung out and like we chat a lot. And like one of my friends back in DC has hit it off with him. So we have these like goofy like music nerd chats. So it's the two of them headlining, and it's like this roster of like old friends of mine from DC all playing. Like Jeff
Nice.
Freefall is on it, and a bunch of other people. But it's a day party at the brewery. So it's going to be good music, and it's going to be a
And it
lot
will
of
finish
cool.
at a reasonable hour.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So I'm going to
For
go grab.
parents. Yeah,
Yeah,
go get
for
your beer.
yes. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, yeah. Futurist, welcome in. Good to see you. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out. Um, Harry was saying that like you don't have to know all the breaks names. And it's funny because like I don't feel obligated to do it, except that I'm a big giant nerd. And there's nothing I like more than getting like super nerdy uh about music stuff. Like I'll be in some stream with John Good Shepherd and like we touch on like some hi-hat or like some tiny little detail that nobody notices except we notice it and then we go off talking about it. Um which is what makes like those little things fun to talk about, right? Um uh uh no, I'm like I am really into it, but like back in the day I didn't like I I knew it was sampled music, but I never got really interested in like knowing all of that stuff. And now that I'm making it, I'm much more interested in it cuz you're like making music, you just listen to music differently and you want to know about the building blocks, right? Um so that you can use them again in your music. Man, Korax, I wish my jungle knowledge was better. I literally have like a 20-year gap in it where I just wasn't following it really closely. I never stopped listening, but I wasn't following it closely like I was when I was a DJ. But I have I have a pretty good grasp on stuff back in the day, which tends to impress people. But like today, I don't know anything. Um, Today, I'm extremely ignorant, and uh, I'm like, oh, is that a new artist? No, they've been producing for like 10 years. Oh, well, they're new to me. Um, so yeah, that's that's it. It's actually been super cool because like, yeah, I don't know everything, but there is uh it's really exciting to be constantly learning new things. It's like there's always something to discover brand new. Okay, Funkworm is one of the best pranks. Isn't there something about is it a funky mule or something like that? Um there are like so I know the Think Break, I know the Amen, obviously. The Apache, I don't know any of the other. I mean, I might know the other ones by like if I heard them, I could be like, oh yeah, I know, like I've heard that. But oh yes, the Funky Worm. Yep. Um, like I couldn't even identify a Trayman if you put me to it. Like John was talking about, he put a Trayman in his tune, and I'm like, cool. Like, sounds like an amen to me. Um, and that's all it sounds like. Okay, there's a funky mule too. All right, we're nerding out uh on breaks now. Uh I was telling them that oh Bobble, thanks so much for hanging out. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful night. Enjoy the rest of your week. And yeah, thanks for being here. We'll have to get you to come on sometime soon, Bobble. I'm just gonna use this to like showcase how badass North American drum and bass is. Was, always will be. Um but yeah, have a good night. But I was telling them that like the value in knowing the name of the breaks now is just to nerd out. Like it's really just to be super nerdy and talk about like, oh, like there's that random what is it? There's a random snare at the end of the amen break that hits off time and like all of that dumb, stupid, like only a producers don't listen to music like normal human beings at
They,
all.
they don't.
not even a little bit. Which I have had that. I think I've had that discussion with Secret Structures about like it feels like there are some people that make music so that other producers will be impressed and not so that a regular person who likes drum and bass or jungle would enjoy it. Like the focus, I'm like, that's a lame focus. Producers are a bunch of dorks. Like, don't
Have I
focus
got
on
a
that.
genre for you though?
Yeah.
I feel like breakcore is like
Oh yeah.
that's I haven't listened to it in years. I've never really gotten into it, but I feel like the people that are into it are a lot of them are making it for each other.
I feel like Neuro's like that. Like,
It
um,
can be.
I couldn't identify breakcore though. Like, if you played it for me, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm in 20-year gap. There's like 200 new subgenres, and I'm not into it. In fact, I've done two separate streams about subgenres. One I did with the West Dub,
Yeah, I
who,
know Wes.
yeah, yeah.
Wes and
I
I played
actually,
Warcraft together for a little bit.
yeah, I almost sent him a message, but and was like, "Hey, you might want to come on. You might want to come check it." But like, we did one, and that was amazing. It was such a nerd fest. I loved it. It was really fun. And then I did one with Meta Pattern from Atlanta, and that one we ended up going off like. I ended up going to YouTube and we must have played like six different Circles remixes and they were all different subgenres. And I was like, this is what we should do again. Like, we need to find these big tunes that have been remixed a bunch of times in different genres and then we can explore genres through one track. But Circles is amazing. Like, I don't know what the most remixed tune in drum and bass is, but Circles has got to be up there. Um,
I'm not sure
for
either.
sure.
I think of Goldie and Timeless because there was like a Rabbit in the Moon remix. Uh,
Yeah.
there was a few others.
Well, do you remember when the Represent album came out when
Mhm.
New Forms came out? I swear to God, they must have released on vinyl like 40 different remixes of tunes from that. And I probably had 20 of them. Um like, this one has the Ed Rush mix on it. This one has an optical remix. Like,
I think there
all of
were
them on Talking Loud with that very distinctive sleeve.
futuristic design. There were
Yep.
two released Ed Rush and Optical remixes of Watching Windows. And then I think there's a third one that didn't get released, but like
Hmm.
people liked more. I don't remember. And then there's the DJ Die one that I really should start playing again because it's
Yeah.
DJ Die's stuff from back then is like just amazing.
Jitterbug, Drop Bear, like, which Jitterbug and Drop, it's very interesting because those tunes sound so much alike, but they're so different. And like, I enjoy each of them. Um, but yeah, DJ Die, man, like that whole time period was amazing because like you literally could hear a track and be like, somebody from Bristol made that. Or that person's connected with Full Cycle. And like the whole idea to me that you would have this sort of community that would end up influencing each other to where someone could identify like the location where this
Mhm.
particular music was made is just amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. Hey though, it's 8:58 and for you it's 9:58 and time is the most precious resource we have. So I don't want to keep you if you need to go and like, be a
I,
dad. Okay, we've got time for the beer. All right.
yeah. So the
Excellent.
kids, well, I went upstairs and I got the report. The kids did not adhere to bedtime routine. Um, they should have been in bed like an hour and a half ago, and they're 6 and 2.5, and they were still getting. But the other thing is, we don't have air conditioning. It's been super hot. We're in a heat wave,
Hmm.
and yeah, they're just they haven't come downstairs, like down in the basement, but
Hmm.
they were out of the beds like at least a half hour ago. So, but they
I
should
don't know
be.
how you I don't know how you live without air conditioning. Like,
It sucks.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want to live in that world, but I mean it was over 100 today here. So,
yeah.
my
We
my
hit
AC ran almost all day.
we hit. I'm pretty sure we hit the low 90s But that's the
Hmm.
thing is in Boston, that's going
Yeah.
to be like the peak, and we're looking at like 5 or 6 days in the 90s, and then that's it for the summer. Like it'll drop
Yeah.
back to the 80s. It doesn't get super hot until late in the summer, and then
Hmm.
it doesn't go that long.
Yeah.
But
It
when
won't
it
cool down here until October. Like
in our house,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would say in our house, the basement is the coolest part.
Yep. I was
And
just thinking that.
yeah, so that's where I've been most of the day.
Yeah.
But not,
Ocean just piped up again to say cheers to you. Another DC area homie. Hey
yep.
John, big up, welcome in. Um yeah, also a fellow historian of drum
This
and
is
bass and culture. Ooh,
for
that looks
Corax.
good.
Yeah, it's a pilsner. It's from Delaware. My mom lives in Delaware by the beaches, so that's like
Yeah.
Dogfish Head is the one that everyone knows. This is Dewey Beer Company, and they're right by her house. They make really good like sour beers. But
Oh, I love Rodenbach Grand Cru. The first time I had it, I was like,
mm,
"Oh my god, this is amazing."
yes.
I don't drink beer very often anymore, but I love beer. Like I
So
really do.
Rodenbach was on draft in a bar in DC for years, and a
Hmm.
buddy of mine, like one of my close friends, was not a beer drinker, and
Hmm.
he was probably about like late 20s. I took him to this place. He was like, "Fine, I'll try a beer," and so he got Rodenbach on draft, and he's been a beer guy ever since.
Yeah. I don't remember when the tipping point was for me. Like, it was obviously when I stopped drinking super cheap draft college beer for like 25-cent pitcher
Mhm.
night. Obviously, it was after that, but some tipping point happened and it was no longer something I would drink because it was 25 cents for a pitcher and it became something that I just really enjoyed. Um, but yeah, I swear there was something else I wanted to talk to you about that I just can't remember. Oh yeah, listservs. We didn't even really touch on that. Like, I don't know who's here that remembers listservs, but like in the US, like in the mid 90s, I was in college and the internet was like barely a thing. The internet at that point was
Netscape.
still, yeah, a browser with no pictures, y'all. Text only. That was it. No pictures. I mean, you could probably download pictures, but like that was not your browsing experience. But like the internet was like universities and the government, right? Like big researchers, nerds were talking to each other. But I go to college and they give us, an internet account, an email account sitting at a terminal. And I don't even know like how I ended up finding out about it. But all of a sudden, I find out there are these rave mailing lists. Did you ever go on V-Rave,
Yeah,
which was like a
not
chat server?
not often, but like I think Max MC Duh was a
Yeah,
big B
yeah,
raver.
yeah. He lived in Austin for a while.
Oh, he did.
He used to come to our weekly all the time.
He was
Yeah.
one of my favorite MCs to work with.
Yes,
I
he
think
was
he's in
so much
Arizona
fun.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, he just was always a good time. Like just super chill, really fun. I have a great picture of him somewhere like we were at our weekly and somehow there were those like plastic champagne flutes. Somehow those got involved and he'd like made a stack of them. This picture's ridiculous. It's so stupid, but uh I
He
can't
doesn't
remember where. Oh yeah, go ahead.
he doesn't remember it, but like myself and a couple of my friends remember it because the first time I went to San Francisco, it was myself and two friends of mine,
Mhm.
and a couple other people like that weren't drum and bass people that were with us, but the three of
Mhm.
us. And Benko and I got to open it eclectic, and Max emceed for us, and like we knew of him through internet stuff,
Mhm.
but he had made up some rhyme about Pokemon, and we just cracked up about it. And here we are. It was '99, so 23 years later. My friend Todd and I was to be like, remember when Max like rhymed about Pikachu at the drum and bass event? It's like yes, and then Todd has brought it up with Max, and Max is like, I don't remember that, but it sounds like something I would have done.
Completely,
Yeah.
totally, absolutely on brand um, for MC Duh. Um, but yeah, I don't know. So like V-Rave is where I took my one typing class in junior high and became an amazing typist
Mhm.
on like a 9600 baud where like you would type and wait and then your message would come up. Like, talk about like the most delayed conversations that would happen, and like five people are participating in them, so they're just like going all over the place. But somehow I found out about these rave mailing lists, and it was crazy. Like, they became such a cultural thing. Like, we had Texas raves, but I was on Midwest raves, I was on NE raves, like, um and you met all these other crazy people. I did a for Texas raves, I did a weekly rave calendar, and I called it Curly's Rave-A-Rama. And I would basically list like, here's all the upcoming events, the major lineups, here's where to get tickets. Like, what a dork. Like, it was awesome. It was so cool.
I was on DC raves first,
Yep.
then any raves, and there were like University. I was at University of Maryland, and there were a lot of people that were on those listservs.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ben, I initially met because my introduction on DC raves, like I go to University of Maryland, I just started going to raves, and I get this message back, and like, "Yo, are you a party kid? Like this is where all the party kids at Maryland hang out, like in front of on the stairs in front of the student union." And I was totally not like that type of. I didn't look like a raver. I didn't dress
Right.
like a raver initially.
Nobody did at first.
And Ben and I didn't exactly get along at first because he was so like in that scene.
Uh-huh.
But then the music like eased things up and we became much better friends. But after those two, I then got on the breaks list, which was a drum and bass listserv, and it was international. And
Oh yeah.
there were a lot of people involved with that. And I had mentioned last night, it's like when I had stress level dubs before he was stress level. So
Yes.
I just vividly remember this guy Graham is like, I'm learning how to produce, and I really like stuff from Bristol, and so here are my tracks, and they're all in real audio format.
Oh
And
my god.
they were cool. They weren't like pro spec, but like they were good. And then jump to like 8 years later, I go to my friends are throwing a Wednesday night in DC at a good venue, and it would they have drum and bass artists. They had Stress Level, and he plays his set. It was like he was like a liquid guy. TC1 and Stress Level were like pretty much liquid then. So afterwards, my friends were like, "Oh, this is Graham's Stress Level," and I was like, "Graham?" And I rattle off this email address, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Breaks list?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Ransom." He was like, it just totally
That's
random.
awesome.
Never kept in touch with him. I think like he stopped producing, and I think he went into academia like in the States.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned real audio, because literally while I was getting the stream ready tonight, I'm in Mr. Burnt Yogurt's chat, and somehow somehow I get reminded of it and bring up Real Media and the Real Audio player, and the fact that like one of these old backup CDs I found literally had Real Audio files on it. I don't even know if you can play Real Audio files anywhere, but right there among my 96K MP3s were a couple Real Audio files.
Were they were they from the Place to Be or
I have
Groove Tech?
no idea. I have no idea. It was hilarious. Like, talk about like a digital hoarder. I mean, like, I only just recently deleted that stuff, but like like now you don't even think about it, right? Like, because you don't have to have files. You can go to YouTube and listen, or Spotify, or whatever. So I hadn't thought about like what I had. Like the biggest stuff I've kept now is obviously like stuff that's quality enough to play, but mixes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've kept a lot of my mixes, because not all of that stuff is on YouTube, especially like some of the mixes from like stateside people.
Yeah.
But yeah, we even started I got to talking to the girls from Sister SF, and we ended up starting a listserv for women that were getting into DJing. So, because times were rough in jungle back then, like it was a boys club, like beyond belief. And we would talk, like some of us would talk to these girls, like they would reach out to us or come up to us at events or whatever and be like, I have this question and I can't get any of these dudes to give me a straight answer, you know, whatever. Or they don't take me seriously or whatever. And I was like, let's start a listserv. And, you know, we did. And that was awesome. It was super cool. Thankfully, things have gotten better since then, but I still have a fondness in my heart for like a group of women getting together. Like it warms my heart to think about those times. I wasn't anybody, but I had a little experience to tell these DJs, your first gig is probably going to be rough. Just go with it. If you make a mistake, just make sure the next track is a banger. Nobody will remember. You'll remember, but nobody else will. Just move on. It's fine. Like, it's fine. Nobody's going to ultimately care. And the dude who's got his arms crossed watching you DJ doesn't matter anyway.
Exactly.
I at one point wanted to get a t-shirt made that said, if you can read this, you're too close to the DJ booth.
The eclectic in San Francisco, their slogan was "fuck off and dance."
Yes,
and they had those signs up everywhere.
Yeah, like, I mean, and this was not exclusively an experience for women DJs, but like, hey, Madi, good to see you. There was this like stereotypical, what I call drum and bass dude bros, who were constantly watching you, watching your labels, you know, judging every track that you played. Like, they were 100% not there to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
They were there to figure out that you were shit and all the ways that you were shit so they could talk about how shitty you were after the fact. Just these, like, that's been so refreshing about coming back into the scene. Is like, it felt like for a long time, like drum and bass was just full of like these super miserable people who were like focused on really meaningless details and like, oh, if someone else is having success, then there's less success for me to have. And, you know, like, just really bad vibes. And that was part of the reason I got out. I was like, this isn't fun anymore. Like, I love the music, but I'm not into this. And it's been so refreshing now to find out that attitude, I'm sure it still exists, but it's not welcome most places, you know.
I think it gets either addressed or people speak out against it more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
well, and like you had to be hard, right? And you had to be cool. And like, I got on Twitch because my best friends, who were friends back in the day, ravers, they're married now. They met on Midwest raves, and
are you friends with
there?
Muppet Fucker?
That's who I'm talking about. Muppet Fucker and his wife, Jenny Rave, aka God, what was her? She DJ'd hardcore for a while. Generator.
I remember that name. Yeah.
They're my best friends. I work with Generator.
I never talked with Noah, but like I remember him because like the DJ that was like KY Jeffy level. Like, DJ name.
Oh my God. Yeah, they have framed the cease and desist letter they got from Jim Henson Company. But that's
went to University of Maryland.
It came from. Pardon me?
Jim Henson went to University of Maryland.
No way.
Yeah.
The world is so connected.
Yeah. They got a statue of him and Kermit in front of the student union.
That's so cool. But yeah, just so everybody knows, yes, he was my roommate for a while. He was a happy hardcore DJ, one of the very few in America. Julian Casper DJ'd happy hardcore. Noah did. I don't know how many others, but not very many. And he went by DJ Muppet Fucker. Oh God, this is amazing. This is a good story. So that name came from the Purr Lion. Ryan and like these guys were hard and they were cool, but they liked music, and so like they were down with Noah and they liked his sets. And one of them was like on the mic at one of his sets, and somehow like Muppet Fucker came out and like That should be your name. But that was a not a reference to Kermit the Frog or Oscar the Grouch. It was a reference to
Miss
the
Piggy.
British term. Close. It's a reference to the British term for like a addled raver person. They would call
Yeah,
them
Muppet.
Muppets. So that's where Muppet Fucker came from. But
It's like
yeah,
it's in the vein of like Groove Rider, Loft Groover. There's like a Master Vibe. Like there's like that style of UK DJ name from the early
mhm,
'90s. Like
yeah,
Muppet Fucker was up there with that style.
yeah,
It was
yep.
just cheekier.
Well, and I mean, memorable,
Yeah.
completely memorable. Meanwhile, like I had signed on to V Rave with the name Curly because I was like, I don't know what to sign up with, and my friend Noel was like, "You have curly hair, go on as Curly." My DJ name was Curly, and I was like, I'll think of something better. I never thought of anything better. But they told me that El Hornet was doing was streaming, and I was like, who's El Hornet? And they're like, from Pendulum, and I'm like, I'm gonna hate this. But because they told me to go, I went because like in my mind, Pendulum was angry robot music, like
Mhm.
that period where like things just got like super aggressive, and I was not feeling that. I was like, let's go Fabio direction, and
Swerve it
but
up.
I yeah, but I go in there, and turns out this guy who I fully expect to be a drum and bass dude bro playing aggressive music is playing trance and like hands in it has a happy hardcore label now and like plays like some of the most emotional like festival feel good drum and bass and like the whole chat is into it and they're all like this was at the height this was at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody was like super lonely and it was super depressing and nobody knew what was going to happen and you have this group of people like it was a big deal at that time for him to get to 69 viewers because we used to make a big deal about it every time but like you have this group of people and I'm fully expecting a bunch of people that are too cool and meanwhile they're like I love this track it makes me it gets me in the feels and I love you guys and blah blah blah. I mean not what I expected. What a pleasant reintroduction to the drum and bass scene. Like and El Hornet talks about how he has this happy hardcore label now Mountain Terrace and he produces happy hardcore and he tells the story about how like when he was when he was a young raver he was too cool for happy hardcore but he always secretly liked it and now here we are and we don't have to be cool anymore because we got old and we realized that was stupid
Yeah.
completely.
So with the pandemic, I didn't watch El Hornet's streams. I
Mm-hmm.
was watching Addison Groove a lot.
Mm.
He used to, when he wrote dubstep, he wrote as Headhunter. He also used to be one of Tech Itch's roommates, even though he was much younger. But
Wow.
Addison Groove, he was doing like 3-4 sets a night, or 3 or 4
Oh
sets a
wow.
week. And he's got connections to some people. He's friends with Gromit and Gromit's wife in Austin.
Yeah, Gromit and Christina.
So they're super active in the chat. So Addison Groove's crowd started calling themselves Barrel Room
Oh.
or the Barrel Room Massive because his turntable setup was on top of two barrels, and he and DJ Pinch, who owns Tectonic, they have a mezcal company, and they
Mm-hmm.
distill like the mezcal
Oh
is
wow.
distilled in these barrels. So that's why he's got these barrels. I love Addison Groove stuff. Like and his shows, like it's a very different experience from what I imagine like El Hornet is, and like I've watched a
Mm-hmm.
couple of John B sets. It's just it's a different show
Yeah.
because Tony will go into like all these different genres. Like he might start out with like jungle, like old jungle, and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and then suddenly like he's into dub techno, and then suddenly it's like cumbia, and like just he goes in all these different directions. And like I haven't used any drugs in like 13 years. I was never a big drug user,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes he'd be like, "I'm taking mushrooms tonight," and it's like, they're 6 hours ahead of where I'm at
Right.
and I'm getting on at 9 at night. and like I'm watching for like 2 hours, and like you see the sun come up in Bristol because he's in Bristol. You see the sun come
Yeah.
up, and like I don't know, the sets were really fun. There were some really good sets. I haven't watched them in a while, but yeah, there were
A
some
lot.
cool people in the
Yeah.
chat.
Well, I mean, El Hornet will do that too. Like for a while, he was doing Thrash and Thursdays, which was typically like punk 7 inches.
Hmm.
Um, uh, he did one of my favorite streams he's ever done was a whole Eurodance stream. It was amazing. It was so good. He has a real like he's foolproof that the best producers, DJs all have a they have a very wide taste. They
Hmm.
listen to a lot of different things. And he's absolutely proof of that. Maudie, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the dog walk. That's good stuff right there. Um, but I don't know where you're at on that beer, but I'm just telling you, like, I have a feeling you and I could probably go for a long time. Um,
Might be
and I,
best. I was saying it might be best to do a part two. Like,
we definitely need to do that. I've never run out of stuff to talk with people about. I always end up wanting to do it again. But
was like
yeah.
I'd say about 10 minutes left.
Okay. Perfect.
Stuff to bring
Perfect.
up. So I mentioned the one track coming out of Four Corners. My next release is on Detached Audio. It's a track called Roped In. Just to talk about old tracks. I originally wrote the track in 2016, and it sounded much different. Like I'll share it somewhere, but
Yeah.
I shelved it, and then last year I played a version of it, and Filth was like, change out the drums, and so it became I changed out the drums, but it became a different track, and it's a completely different vibe from the original track. But that is going to come out on Detached Audio at the end of August.
That's why you don't delete projects.
Yeah. Then my EP for Four Corners. So Four Corners is awesome. It's interesting how basically I don't know, have you listened to the Last Week Liquid podcast?
No, I never have. That sounds
Really?
awesome. It sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, look up Last Week Liquid.
Okay.
It's Mill Street is this guy Simon. He's Belgian, but he sounds like
Yeah.
he's Irish, and it turns out it's because he's got Irish family. He was doing it weekly for the first year. It's actually been on a hiatus for about a month, but there's I don't know, like 60 interviews to get through, and it's some great interviews.
Nice.
I support his page. There's a few Patreons I support. I support his Patreon. I'll start hassling him in like a month if he doesn't start doing episodes again. But I know he was at the Liquid City Festival this past weekend, and he did some interviews there. But he had Malinky on for an episode. Like I knew of Four Corners and I knew of Malinky, but like I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. And the interview was really good. It was just like, this guy sounds cool. He sounds like someone I want to work with. Right. And so in my mentor sessions, Phil was like, have you sent any demos anywhere? Are you sending demos? And like, I was only sending demos to Karen occasionally. And not even, I think I only sent Karen like 3 demos at that point. And he signed one of the tracks. And actually I sent 2 of those tracks to Jack Echo Motion as well, but they weren't a fit. Like they were more, I thought more Calibrate, but they didn't fit Calibrate at the time. So Phil was like, you need to stop sitting on your ass. You need to start like sharing your music, send some demos out. I was like, well, what do you think of Four Corners? And he goes, I love Four Corners. I've worked with Four Corners. I'm like good friends with Malinky. He's like, you should send him of your batch of demos, send him these 4 tracks. I was like, okay. So I package them up. I make a folder on Dropbox because I'm of the practice of like, if I'm sending a demo to a label, I'm not going to send it on SoundCloud where they can see like 20 listens from other people. Like I'm sending them a package that it's targeted to them. Right. So I read up this email. I was like, hey, Sonny, like I wanted to send some demos for consideration for Four Corners. I heard your interview on Last Week Liquid. I know that the label schedule is booked up for the rest of the year, but that was for 2021. I was like, but you sound like someone I want to work with. And then I was like, by the way, I'm friends with Phil. He says I should send you these. So send him that. I get an email 6 hours later. It's like, I want these 2 tunes. These other 2 tunes are good, but they're not for me.
Mhm.
And I got those two soon. Those two soon tunes got signed elsewhere. But
Wow.
wait, I've signed like 7 tracks, I think, with Four Corners. So one came out as a free release. That was my intro. Then I had a track on a compilation. Um, then he let one of the tracks go. He decided once the EP idea started to come together, he
Mhm.
was like, I signed this track, but I don't want it now. It doesn't fit the
Mhm.
rest of the stuff that's going to be on the EP.
Right.
So I sent it to Pixis,
Mhm.
Marissa,
Headspace.
Mel, yeah, Headspace. She signed it within an hour. Like, and I was just,
Wow.
that was the other thing is like, I had them in mind for this track as well.
Mhm.
So if like something didn't happen with that one track, that's who I wanted to send it to. So I sent it, and that's where it ended up. But I also had to
Nice.
be, I couldn't say anything about it for like 7 months. Stuff moves very slow with like releasing stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
That
my
is a whole other challenge.
yeah. Um,
Great. You learned how to make music. Now you have to learn how to get it released.
yeah. And so I've Four Corners. We had 3 of the 4 tracks set for the EP. They got them mastered already. So like I have mastered versions. Malinky has mastered versions, and he sent them to like 2 people. So like almost no one has these tracks.
Yeah.
And so it's just nailing down the 4th track. We had the 4th track figured out. Now I just have to like come up with like a vocal hook.
Yeah.
But of the stuff that's signed, 2 of the tracks are older tracks that I then revamped like
Oh,
years
nice.
later.
Mhm.
So there is value to like holding your old projects. If you're like it's not quite there,
Right.
sometimes you can add and or like take out parts and then put in new parts, and
Right.
they
Right.
fit what's needed.
Yeah, or I've looked at them and been like, I kind of abandoned this project, but you know what? These samples really worked well together. I can bring them into something else.
Yeah, you just find like a
Um,
new sound palette to use with them.
yeah, yeah. Guys, I put up the link to Harry's link tree, and he has links to a ton of his releases, amongst other great things. We didn't even get to talk about Memories in Music, which is
Oh, yeah,
a
I
great
gotta
Instagram page
I gotta
that you
pick that
need to
back
get
up.
back to.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
Good
mean,
Shepherd told me to tell you that.
look at
Um, yeah, all
Ocean.
that vinyl.
Ocean. I actually hung out with Ocean last, was it May last, like a
Mhm,
year ago,
mhm,
and because I took a trip to DC to pick up records at a turntable from a friend,
mhm.
and I sold Ocean some of the records. But like I love vinyl, and I have memories connected to the vinyl. And it's like
Mhm.
eventually I'm gonna do a zine. Like I'll print up the stories, and
Yes.
I'll send them to like 50 friends, or you know
Yeah.
it's just something. It's I don't know. I attended a
Yeah.
talk. I attended a talk last year. Uh, I didn't even mention. So I support a couple of patrons. One of
Mhm,
them is Martin, and he and Jerome Erosi run a label called 3024, and
mhm.
they're more of a bass music label. They do more slower tempo stuff. But
Mhm.
the mentor program, it's really cool. It's like group cohort. You do these calls, and it's like 10 of us, but there's like 120 people total.
Mhm.
And he'll do like a monthly. They've had D Bridge, they've had DJ Flight, but they have
Oh
people like
wow.
Surgeon and Ski Mask and Max D from DC, who's like a I don't even know how to describe like beautiful swimmers. Like look them up. But he did this one monthly like talk, and it was this woman Emma L. Warren, and she's written some books about documenting your scene. And
Mhm.
so I came away from that talk like I should document these stories about my records. So that's when
Right.
I started the Instagram, and I had ideas for it, and I did maybe like 24 stories,
Mhm.
but I lost steam with it. The thing
Yeah.
is, it's still there. There's still stories. I just gotta write them and like post them.
I
So
have somewhere, I think I printed it out and I might have an electronic copy. There was like this really big rave that happened in Houston in 95, and it was Chris Treadway, who I was talking about earlier, who brought the records over from the UK. His crew hadn't they hadn't thrown an event in a while, and it was such a big deal, and like so many people met that for the first time from like the listserv, and I solicited. I was like, send me your reviews. Send me your reviews of the event, and I'm going to put them together. I have those still, from all those years ago, and I'm so glad that I do. Like, what a pure and innocent time it was, for kids that were high on drugs and loved music. It was still pure and innocent in a lot of ways.
One of my plans for the Memories of Music Instagram is to get stories from friends about records. Like, you have a record, like, it doesn't even have to be your favorite record, but it has to be a record that like has some significance to you. And like,
Right.
I don't want a review of the record. I don't want it to be
Yeah.
like, this is my favorite Amen banger. Like, I want it to be like, I was at Rave X at like 6 a.m. and they
Right.
open up the bay door and blah blah, like, you know,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
So
The fog machine went crazy, and yeah, like all of that stuff. Like, John B's Visions album had just came out, and all of these dudes were all playing Jump Up, and me and my girl DJ crew had the side room. They just gave it to us one night, and Turbulence had just come out, and John B's Vision album had just came out, and all four of us each played Starburst and Turbulence, and we didn't give a shit that it got repeated,
Yeah.
that they got repeated all night, and that's still a dope mix. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna let you go because
Well,
I have
I
a
was-
feeling. Oh no,
I
go
was,
ahead.
I was,
Oh,
I was going to answer Korax's
yes,
question.
Chorus's question. Thank you
So
for reminding me.
what is my DAW? My main. So most people are like, I am this. I am this. My identity is not tied to a particular DAW. my main one is Bitwig. That's the one that I have the most fun working in. But I will occasionally use Ableton, and rarely I'll use Logic. There's certain things I can do in the different one, each one differently. Like Phil mainly uses Logic, and so he'll show me a lot of techniques in Logic. But there's been one or two techniques that are like Logic specific. So
Yeah.
if I want to take like a sound and turn it into a riser, there's a very specific audio unit, which is an Apple plugin format. There's a specific audio unit that does a pitch shift, but it does it differently than most pitch shifters you can get in other DAWs or buy from a plugin company. So sometimes I'll write a track in Bitwig, or I'll write a track in like, I'll start like an idea in Ableton, and I'll bounce it out to stems, and I'll take like one sound and I'll put it in Logic, and you know, I have a template where I'll make a riser out of it.
Yeah.
But they're all
That's so cool.
they're tools. They're tools, and you learn how to use them in different ways, and like the way I use it is completely different from how other people use it. So
yeah. Bitwig, I've never even heard of that.
it's some
Like,
nerd shit.
Hey man, all music is nerd shit when you come down to it like this. I mean,
Bitwig is a bunch of
especially when you make it on a computer.
Bitwig. So Bitwig is a bunch of programmers that like supposedly left Ableton early on,
Oh.
and it's the product that they developed. So some people will complain that Ableton is bloated, like it's got a lot of unnecessary features or a lot of outdated features, and so
Right.
Bitwig is a bit more streamed, like a more streamlined version. It's like less bloated, but they're all tools. Like you get different sounds out. Sometimes it's fun to like make sounds in one thing and then like put them together in another.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can see that. Well, and you know, sometimes it's just helpful. Like, I ended up getting Hive because that's what Algorithm uses.
because Willem uses it.
Exactly. John and I were talking about that. We were like, we're kind of like Willem's grandkids. But
I support his Patreon as well.
So do I. It was my first
for
Patreon.
Willem?
No, I'm sorry, not Willem. Michael, Algorithm. Okay. But I should support Willem's actually. There's a lot of
his Discord's kind of quiet, but Drew will interact a little bit, which is nice. And I've actually liked his presentation of stuff for years. Like when he would put out his sample packs, he'd do a couple of YouTube videos, and I liked how he presented stuff. And so that's what led me to like, okay, I'm gonna support this Patreon for a bit. So you get samples, you get some videos, and he's only been doing it for about 4 or 5 months, but if you make a suggestion for a video, he'll consider it, and like, you know,
Nice.
he's kind of, it's a small group of patrons,
Mhm.
and he tries to cater to what they're asking for.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really cool. But like before I got Hive, before I decided to do that, I have what's the free one? I can't remember.
There's a couple of free UHIs.
Uh
There's Zebra CM, Basil CM, Tyrell
oh my
6.
God, I look at that shit every day. Why can't I Vital? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I have Vital. Vital's free. But I was really thinking about buying Serum because there's just so many tutorials for Serum, right? And there's so many patches for Serum. But that becomes kind of the question, right? Like, well, my friend uses Ableton and they're like ahead of me on the curve. So if I'm making a decision, I'm going to go with Ableton because I got somebody who can hold my hand while we do that. But
So
yeah.
that trend. So my product, like when I got into production, I started with SoundForge because I didn't know any better, and then I got Cakewalk. I had no idea how to use it. And then you start meeting people that are talking about production. They're all like Cubase, 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 and it's like I have to get Cubase because Cubase is the best DAW ever.
Right.
It's not the best. It's what that group of people is familiar with, and that's what they talk about. Because you get people now that's like FL is the best, and it's like no, Ableton is best. No, Studio One is the best. Only says Duncan. Logic is the best. Like people are like saying this, and it's because people that are more experienced than them are using it, and they're just kind of repeating. It's like I have my parents' like political beliefs. It's like no, I started to take it political. It's like yeah,
Neuro is the best subgenre, or whatever it is.
And it's you just have to get comfortable. You have to like figure out, okay, this tool does this. Okay. Like I'm sure that give me like a week and I can learn a DAW and have it set to like how I like to work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I love Serum. I find Serum very engaging. Like I find it easy to use. I like the sounds I get out of it. Vital is probably an amazing synth. It just
I wouldn't know.
I don't have the capacity right now. Like I'm like I didn't get massive until I learned how to use Serum. Because I don't like I didn't like synth. I have more fun with synthesis now. Like I'm doing better with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
I am not into it. I'm like, thank God somebody is, because that means I have samples. But yeah, I'm a more vibes girl, I think, than like the technical stuff. I think it's amazing, but
there's like
the thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There's like a Kinsey scale.
Yeah.
Not to get into human sexuality, but like the Kinsey, there's like the Kinsey scale of like synthesis. Like so, it's like I am vibes, I am technical, I'm somewhere in there. Like I'm not gonna yuck your yum if you're super technical and you want to make all your drums like out of hummingbirds. Like
God bless you for doing it. Yeah, I mean, like I want to understand how things work, but that doesn't mean I want to spend my time doing it. But I like to understand it because I think that helps as you're working. But nobody is going to listen to your track and go, man, this is shit, because they use Ableton. Like,
well, there's the one guy on Duncan's Discord right now, but he's getting enough like flack from people, and he's like, okay,
all right, I was a dick. That's awesome. Yeah. Intake like Serum as well. But yeah, so I'm going to let you go because I read something recently about people with ADHD having a really hard time ending conversations. I am that person. And so I generally have to go, love you, bye. This is super fun, and just hang up really quick. So guys, I'm going to put Harry's Linktree up again. Literally all the things are there. I love Linktree. It's amazing. Go there, learn more about him. Yes, this was so fun. I really appreciate your time and coming here and hanging out. And we definitely need to do it again. We'll get like super historically nerdy. All right, I'm gonna find us a raid, guys, and yeah, peace out, Harry. What am I doing? Okay, there's an outro.